What is happening, everybody? It is time for the championship games today. There are only 3 games left in the NFL season. We got the AFC Championship game, the NFC Championship game, and of course, the Super Bowl a couple weeks from now. So do me a favor as we come in here, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I hope you guys are staying warm. I'm not. I'm freezing. I'm very cold in my office. I did consider doing the show out of a different room in my house, but it would have been a pain in the ass to move everything also. So it was kind of a question for me. Do I want to be really cold for the 30 minutes I'm hanging out with you? Or do I want to set all my stuff up somewhere else, rearrange it, and then have to move it back into my office at a different point in time? So I chose the cold. So I'm toughing it out, much like some of the guys like Matt Collins grinding out an injury today. He's expected to play. I also am doing a show in the cold. So I'm tough too. I could also do it. I could tough out the cold here. So guys, if you could do me a favor, by the way, somebody in chat is asking, is this live? Yes. Is this not on? Is this not on right now? Seems like it is. All right. Well, hopefully, if you guys just give me a thumbs up or something, let me know in chat if you could see me, because now I'm concerned. The one person asked if we're live here. All right. I think we're good. Well, anyway, here's what we're going to do. The next 30 minutes, I'm going to be building out lineups with you guys. Then for an hour after me, it is going to be Ben and Lofty on the deep dive, followed by Spags and Eric on Live Before Lock for an hour. So that is what we are going to. Oh, okay. Making sure it wasn't a replay. No, how could it be? The games are starting in a couple of hours. We're live here. We're live, my friend. So we're going to be building some lineups here, also looking at the projections we have here at Stokastic. We'll go over some of the changes in the wide receiver projections because we have guys like Matt Collins in now, which was not the case when Lofty did shows earlier in the week. And let's go ahead. Let's start looking at it, beginning at the quarterback position, where we've got Drake May leading the way by a pretty decent margin, nearly a 20 fantasy point projection for May. That's 3 more fantasy points than any other player on the slate. So we got May just under 20 fantasy points. We've got Sam Darnold for just under 17 fantasy points. Then he got Stafford 16 fantasy points. And no shocker here, Jarrett Stidham, he is going to be the one who is pulling the last lowest projection here, 14.4 fantasy points, although still kind of comparably owned to Matt Stafford. And we've seen here, I thought this was going to change a little bit over the course of the week, but it hasn't. Drake May is 45% owned, and then every other QB kind of around the 20% ownership range. You've got 21% to Sam Darnold, 17.5% to Stafford, 17% to Stidham. So earlier in the week, when we saw it was a little bit lower on Stafford, we saw Stafford just like a little bit over 10% owned. I did think he was going to come up, but I thought we were going to see a little bit less ownership going to Drake May in turn. Instead, it's Sam Darnold who's pulling less ownership now, and Drake May still remaining super popular at the QB position. Running backs now, Kenneth Walker in the absence of Zach Charbonnet, he's expected to be pretty much universally owned, 93% owned, also 20.5 fantasy points, a massive fantasy point projection gap between Walker and everybody else. He's at 20.5 fantasy points. Then you've got RJ Harvey just under 14, Ramondre Stevenson at about 13.5, Kyron Williams just under 12 fantasy points, then 7.5 for Trevion Henderson, 15.5 for Blake Corum. Your ownership at the the running back spot, mentioned Kenneth Walker, 93% owned, super popular ownership on Walker. He's the most popular player on today's 2-game slate. Harvey, right around 50% owned. Stevenson just under 50% owned. Then you got Kyron Williams, 28% owned. Nobody else pulling any ownership at the running back spot. So if you want to be different on this slate, I think the 2 guys that make the most sense, they don't project crazy well, but keep in mind, only a 2-game slate. How do we get different in a way that's low owned, but not like completely impossible to have a ceiling sort of outcome or lineup? I'd say that's Trevion Henderson at 5% ownership and Blake Corum at 3% ownership. I totally understand why Henderson projects lower than Stevenson. I totally understand why Blake Corum, who barely played last week, is projected lower than Kyron Williams. But based on what we've seen for the entire season, I don't think it's impossible for these guys to have decent games, especially relative to their 5% and 3% ownerships. At wide receiver now, we've got JSN and Puka Nacua, the 2 top projected wide receivers. And once again, by a decently wide margin, there's no surprises here. Just under 22 fantasy, 21.97 is the projection on JSN, 21.59 for Puka Nacua. So if you're wondering who we have projected the highest between the 2 star wide receivers, slightly towards JSN in our projections. Then you got everybody else 12.5 fantasy points for Adams, 11.5 for Diggs, 11.5 for Cortland Sutton. Nobody else is pulling double-digit fantasy point projection at the wide receiver spot. You guys could see we now have Pat Bryant in our projections. He's at 8.5 fantasy points. So earlier in the week, when Lofty and I did both the single lineup sim show as well as the tournament strategy show looking at the sims, we had Pat Bryant out at that point in time. Now he's in. As a result, you'll see Mims' projection down to 7.3 now. And then also Lil Jordan Humphrey, who's projected a little bit higher earlier in the week. He's now only at 3 fantasy points. Your other change at the wide receiver position, Matt Collins. He was out of our projections earlier in the week. He is now expected to play today. So we got him in for 6.69 fantasy points. And kind of an interesting option for me as well, only 11% owned from the standpoint of with Matt Collins. He was the wide receiver who was playing the most snaps for the Patriots earlier in the season before he got hurt. And now we haven't seen him for a little bit. So is he just going to be a decoy today? Like, is he just going to be out there because it's such a high leverage game? And is it going to be something like the Amari and Hampton situation that we saw in the Chargers-Patriots game where it's just throw him out there, see how it goes? It's hard to say, but Matt Collins has had a pretty decent role in the Patriots passing game when he has been healthy. We just don't know exactly what his health is like for today. Ownership at the wide receiver position, JSN 80% owned, Puka Nacua 72.5% owned. Then your two other wide receivers north of 30% owned, Devontae Adams and Cortland Sutton, with Stephon Diggs being just under 30% owned. Your top points per dollar plays at wide receiver, JSN followed by Puka Nacua. So still the spend up options. It's funny, of all the guys on the slate, the top points per dollar plays, it's still Kenneth Walker, JSN, and Puka Nacua, even though they are some of the more expensive skill position players. Then you got Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, Cortland Sutton. The tight end spot now. And kind of a tough slate for tight end, not because there aren't good tight end options. It's just because so many of these guys look similar. Hunter Henry projecting the best, then AJ Barner. Then you got Colby Parkinson, Evan Ingram, Tyler Higbee, Terrence Ferguson. It is really, the Rams use all three of these tight ends, Parkinson, Higbee, and Ferguson. We've got Parkinson at 7 fantasy points, Higbee at 4, Ferguson at 3.5. All of them pulling some ownership, 9% to Ferguson. Actually pretty low on Higbee, just 4.5%. Then Parkinson at 23%. So if I'm going to be playing one of the tight ends with Stafford, I'm kind of more inclined to go to Higbee or Ferguson just because they're so much lower owned. And I don't think there's that much that separates these 3 tight end options. The ownership overall at the position, you got Hunter Henry just under 40% owned, then just over 20% ownership to Parkinson and Barner. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and start building out some lineups. If you guys have super chats for me, you can leave those. I'll be on the lookout for any of those to build some lineups you guys want me to plug in for you. Or if you're a Stokastic sub, you could sign up for any of our packages using the link down below in the YouTube description box. I'll also be looking in the Discord channel to see if you guys submit any lineups or have questions for me as we go. But let's start here. And I mean, we could kind of build lineups going back and forth between DraftKings and FanDuel and pretty easily build at least one lineup with every single quarterback on the slate. But where I want to start here is with a Drake May lineup, just because he is so popular. I want to see how these lineups actually sim out with Drake May. And I think it stands to reason the 2 stacking partners that we're most inclined to be getting to here, Stephon Diggs as well as Hunter Henry. And then also at the running back spot, every single lineup that I build personally on the show, I'm going to include Kenneth Walker. It is going to be really hard to build lineups that sim well without Walker when you just look at that gap that we talked about with his projection relative to every other running back. So with him being projected for over 20 fantasy points, nobody else even over 14, it's just such a big gap that any lineups without him, they're just not going to look great in the single lineup sims. All right. Running back, 2 wide receivers, tight end spot, which is already filled with Henry, flex, and the DST. All right. So we've got $5,400 to play with here. We've already got kind of the core of our stack. I don't feel like I need to have a run back from the Denver side of the game, especially, you know, with Stidham as the quarterback option there. But if I was going to go to somebody, Harvey does make the most sense. He projects the next best of all the available running backs. So I'm just going to plug RJ Harvey in here, and that gives us $5,300 left for 2 wide receivers, a flex, and a defense. Let's see. What do we have at defense? $2,500 for the Broncos, $2,800 for the Rams. Let's just plug the Patriots defense in here. The Broncos defense, I don't want to use them in this lineup just because it's a Patriots stack, but I don't think the absence of Stidham should massively impact the defense, but it seems like the pricing algorithm gave them a ding for the quarterback change. They're only $2,500. So that is a crazy cheap price point for the Broncos. It opens up salary. Just once again, not for this particular lineup because we've already got the Patriots as a stack. But I'll just plug in the Patriots defense, and that would give us $5,900 left for 2 wide receivers and a flex. Let's just throw this on 10% randomness. Going to up this to large contest. We'll have the optimizer complete this. And what do we get to? Drake May, Kenneth Walker, Harvey, JSN, Diggs, Kupp, Henry, Stevenson, Patriots defense. Let's run it. First lineup. Let's see how that goes. Not great. Negative 5.1% sim ROI. I do wonder if that's just because of all the ownership that's going to Drake May. When I run everything through the sims, like the pre-contest sims and all that, I do get the most underweight to Drake May of any quarterback on the slate. So maybe it's just this individual lineup, or maybe we're just viewing Drake May as being pretty overowned, and it's kind of hard to get better looking lineups with him at that kind of ownership. But let's see. We got D-Logs here. D-Logs 3. He's got a Stidham lineup. All right. Bold man wants to play Jarrett Stidham. Let's see what we can do here. Stidham, Harvey. He does have Walker. I was going to say no Walker, but I see Walker's in the flex. All right. So we've got Harvey and Stevenson at running back. Okay. Wide receivers, you went with JSN and Puka. All right. Both the stud wideouts. And then you went with Bryant to save yourself some salary here. And also, obviously, as a stacking partner. You've also got Ingram as a secondary stacking partner. And then you went with Denver's defense as well. And then it was Kenneth Walker in the flex. Let's give it a run. $200 in salary left, so you used up most of the salary. Stidham, Harvey, Stevenson, Nakua, JSN, Pat Bryant, Evan Ingram, Kenneth Walker, Broncos defense. This one came out good, even with Stidham at quarterback. D-Log, this is a good-looking lineup, 61% sim ROI. Much better than the initial one that I built out there with Drake May quarterback. Christopher Lewis wants to know contest archetype for the $2.75 million first marquee. Anytime you see a Millie Maker, it's going to be the marquee setting. Just because, I should say, anytime you see a large field, if it's like a $3,300 buy-in contest with like 800 people, then yeah, that would be the higher stakes. But for just your standard millionaire makers that have tens to hundreds of thousands of entrants, that's going to be the marquee contest every time there, Christopher. All right, let's see. No lineups from Discord, so let's build out another one. So we've built a Stidham lineup. We've also built out a Drake May lineup. Let's go over to FanDuel now. Now, on the FanDuel side of things, let's try a Sam Darnold lineup because we haven't done Darnold yet. We also haven't done a Stafford lineup, so let's try Darnold on FanDuel. And I like Darnold quite a bit on the FanDuel side of things, only $7,400. He's actually priced comparably to Jarrett Stidham, and they're not even owned all that differently either. You got $7,400 Sam Darnold is 22% owned, and then a $6,900 Stidham is 16% owned on FanDuel. I like into Sam Darnold. All right, let's go Darnold. Let's combine him with Walker and JSN. Totally sensible. Let's see, do we want to fit anybody else in on the FanDuel side of things as a stack? We've got Kupp projected not quite as well on FanDuel, which makes sense. He's dirt cheap over on DraftKings. He's relatively more expensive on FanDuel at $5,800. So for now, let's keep it to Darnold, JSN, and Walker. Run it back with Puka Nakua. See how easily doable this is, though. At defense, and you'll see here, the Broncos defense is priced more appropriately to me over on the FanDuel side of things at $4,400 instead of that $2,500 DraftKings price point. Where do we want to go with defense, though? Obviously not the Rams. We could go the Seahawks, though we got Puka in the lineup. Let's just go to the Broncos at $4,400. All right. What do we want to go for cheap? At tight ends, we could go Henry for $5,700. We would need a pretty cheap wide receiver then somewhere. Yeah, I think it'll work if we go Mac Hollins at $4K and then Henry at $5,700. That still gives us $5,600 left for the final two spots. What does that look like? Harvey. Oh, no, that does not look good. No, that does not look good. All right, gotta roll this back a little bit. Maybe if we go cheaper at tight end than Henry, or maybe we just have to take... What if we go from Nakua to Adams instead? Maybe that's what we have to do. Well, Adam's still fairly expensive at 8K. Do we want to go to Kyron as a run back or maybe just no run back? Let's see if we go no run back. What does that look like if we don't force one in? Then we get Sam Darnold, Kenneth Walker, RJ Harvey, JSN, Cortland Sutton, Matt Collins, Hunter Henry, Ramondre Stevenson, Broncos defense. Let's roll this and see how it looks. See if this looks better. Well, better than the other one I built anyway. All right, solid. 49.5% sim ROI. So simple Darnold stack with JSN and Walker. That looked like it simmed out pretty well. Here's another Darnold lineup for FanDuel. Yeah, let's try this one out. This is from Al Butts. He's got Sam Darnold. You've got at the running back spot, you went Corum and Harvey. Okay, Harvey and Corum. Now, Corum projects really poorly for us, just 5.5 fantasy points after his light workload last week. So that might really hurt the sim projection here. But I still want to roll out some of Blake Corum and see what some of these lineups look like. You've got Adams, Sutton, and JSN at wide receiver. Okay. At tight end, you went with Barner. Yeah. Okay. So AJ Barner at tight end. At the flex, you've got Hunter Henry. Yeah, I think this is going to sim out really poorly. Partially because of Blake Corum, but also just not having Kenneth Walker in the lineup. But we'll see. I could be wrong. But I'll be curious. So after this one is done simming, I'm going to put Kenneth Walker into the lineup. Yeah, negative 37.5% sim ROI. Let's see if we're going to leave Blake Corum in the lineup, but I want to put Kenneth Walker in and see how that changes the look of the lineup. Okay, so if we go Kenneth Walker, and now let's take out Adams, the Broncos defense, and Sutton, and just optimize around these few spots. And now the lineup, I left a lot of salary on the table. Let's try it again. Final 3 spots. Let's see. Can we leave less than $700 in salary on the table? No, more. $1,300. One more run. I wonder what it is if we set it on 0% randomness. What's the absolute optimal around these guys on 0% randomness? All right. Sam Darnold, Kenneth Walker, RJ Harvey, JSN, Devontae Adams, Pat Bryant, AJ Barner, Blake Corum, Broncos defense. All right, so let's try the lineup that you had before, still with Corum, but now we've got Kenneth Walker in the lineup instead, because I really do think that not having Kenneth Walker is going to kill lineups by sim ROI. Yeah, so we added Kenneth Walker to the lineup, and now we got it to a 7% positive sim ROI. So it was viable to make a positive lineup with Corum, but it has to have Walker in it. It's really hard to go Corum and no Kenneth Walker and still have it with a positive sim ROI. Mr. Hill. All right, I think this is a DraftKings lineup, so we'll go over to DK. You're going with Matt Stafford as your QB. All right. Stafford, who we've got projected still fairly low, 17.5 ownership on him. Walker. And then who's your other running back here? Stevenson. Okay. And then at wide receiver, you went to JSN, Adams, and Diggs. Okay. Tight end, Hunter Henry. No problem there. And then you've got Evan Ingram in the flex for double tight end. It's funny, all year, I feel like I built lineups to double tight ends. People don't like it. Now we get one slate where the Sims don't like double tight ends and everybody's submitting double tight end lineups. All year, nobody wanted to play the double tight ends. And now we got like one of the only slates of the year where the Sims don't like double tight ends and all the lineups being submitted, 2 tight end lineups. Go figure. All right, Patriots defense. Let's run it. Darnold, Walker, Stevenson, JSN, Adams, Diggs, Henry, Ingram, Patriots defense, negative 57% sim ROI. I am surprised how low this came out. I'm surprised. Let's see if we try taking out Ingram, the Patriots defense, and leave everything else the same. And we'll just go to 5% randomness. All right, Barner and the Broncos defense instead. Let's see if this looks better. Our data might just, well, number one, it might not like Matt Stafford, or maybe it just doesn't like Stafford stacks that don't have Puka Nacua. Yeah, negative 46%. So tough sledding to make some good looking Stafford lineups here, it looks like. Sean Preston's got a Stidham lineup here for us. Stidham, Walker, Harvey. Okay. Stidham, Walker, Harvey. Then you went with JSN, Mims, and Cup. Keep in mind, Mims is projecting worse for us now than he did earlier in the week. That's just because we've got Bryant in our projections when Bryant was out earlier in the week. Cup. Okay, stars and scrubs looking lineup here. Ingram at tight end. A lot of people like Ingram at tight end too. He's been in almost every single lineup you guys have submitted so far. We only have him projected for 12% ownership. I wonder if he might end up being a little bit higher than that. He's 100% owned if we're going by what you guys are building out. Puka Nacua. And then in the defense, you went to Denver. This leaves a ton of salary on the table. Did I do something? Okay. Let me just double check. Stidham, Walker, Harvey. Okay, that's also you have. JSN, Mims, Cup. Ingram, Nacua. No, this is what you're rolling out. All right, let's see it. A lot of salary left on the table, $2,600. What is a $2,600 in salary on the table looking lineup look? All right, negative 39.1% sim ROI. Let's just flip Mims to Sutton. It still leaves $1,100 in salary on the table, but a lineup should look, if you have the ability to play Sutton instead of Mims, I recommend making that change. Let's see what this looks like instead. It's still unique because it leaves a lot of salary on the table. All right, it's still negative, but closer to neutral. You got a lot more equity simply by playing Sutton over Mims there, Sean. All right, our guy Miami Mike, he has got a Stafford lineup, and interesting looking one. You went up with Elijah Arroyo in it. Okay, Stafford. You've got Kyron Williams, Kenneth Walker. Then you went Puka Nacua and JSN. You got Butte here, who also doesn't look quite as good in our projections now that Matt Collins is expected to play relative to earlier in the week. Colby Parkinson, a tight end. Now, here's where you're really, really different. You went with Elijah Arroyo, who projects, he is going to kill this lineup in the single lineup sim. We have Arroyo projected for less than 2 fantasy points. And then you went with the Patriots defense. So we'll roll this. If it comes out negative, then we'll try tinkering with it to take Arroyo out and see what it looks like instead. Because everything else I'm generally okay with. But yeah, negative 67.4% similar. You're most likely going to be taking a 0 with Arroyo. Let's see if we just take out Arroyo in the Patriots defense. Might have to take Parkinson out as well. But for now, just Arroyo in the Patriots defense. And instead, it gave us Ingram in the Broncos defense. All right, let's see. This 2-for-2 swap. Downgrade the defense. You have a little bit more salary to use a more expensive flex. Got you slightly better, but still negative 30% sim ROI. All right, let's try taking Parkinson, Ingram in the Broncos defense out and running it like this. Instead, we got Barner, Higbee in the Broncos defense. All right, does this get it closer to positive? Inching towards it. Still negative, though. But yeah, main takeaway there, Mike. I don't like rostering Elijah Arroyo for today. JB Hughes, Drake May lineup. Okay. Drake May with Kenneth Walker. RJ Harvey. Okay. You went with, it was Walker and Harvey. Then wide receivers are JSN, Diggs, and Sutton. It is pretty hard to build lineups with Puka Nacua and JSN in it. I think that's one thing that we're noticing from building these lineups out, because then you've got people going with crazy punt options that are leading to negative sim ROI lineups. Henry and Barner in the flex, so double tight end. And then the Patriots defense. All right. May, Walker, Harvey, JSN, Diggs, Sutton, Henry, Barner, Patriots defense. Negative 8.5% sim ROI. Yeah, I mean, this is what we're seeing with the Drake May lineups. They're not like tremendously negative, but he's so popular that we're struggling to make some good positive sim ROI lineups. Looks like maybe getting off him for large field tournaments could be the way to go. But we'll see. Maybe somebody will submit a positive Drake May lineup. We're 0 for all of them so far. I built a negative sim ROI Drake May lineup. You guys have had some negative sim ROI Drake May lineups. We got another one here, another contender for a positive. Drake May, Kyron Williams, RJ Harvey. Then in the wide receiver spots, you've got Hollins, Diggs, and JSN. Okay. Matt Collins very risky today, but I'm going to roll him out in some tournament lineups, especially on the FanDuel side of things. Henry and Kyron. And then I think you have Kyron in this twice. Because you said Kyron and K. Will. Kyle Williams? Do you mean Kyle Williams maybe? I could be, it's possible I missed. Okay, let's try Kyle Williams. Maybe that could be who you meant. Although then we've got $5,600 left for the defense. Huh. All right, well, I'll plug in the Patriots defense. That leaves $2,100 in salary on the table. Let me see. Yeah, negative. This lineup. Oh, K. Will. All right, I've never heard of Kenneth Walker called K. Will. All right, so let's change that. All right, so Kenneth Walker instead in the flex. But then we're $600 in salary over. All right, so let's try changing out the defense. So instead at defense, I guess we have to plug in the Rams, right? Because we're not going to play the Broncos defense against May, and there's only the two other lineups that fit. So let's try this. Let's see if this one works instead. All right, it came out positive at least. 10.1% sim ROI. Can't fit in the Patriots defense. With the Rams, it did come out positive. This is the best Drake May lineup we built so far. 10.1% sim ROI. So that's something. Ankle Breaker has got a Sam Darnold lineup. All right. Darnold, Walker, JSN. All right. You've got Kenneth Walker. Who's the other running back here? Oh, you want me to fill out the rest. All right, gotcha. So you've got JSN, Devontae Adams, Colby Parkinson. And, okay, nobody else you wanted in here. So I'll just set this to 10% randomness. Let's complete it, see what shows up. In the entire lineup, Darnold, Walker, Harvey, JSN, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, Colby Parkinson, Evan Ingram, Broncos defense. I like this a lot on paper. It seems very chalky, but it's also a pretty stacked lineup. Positive 18.3% sim ROI. I think the only reason it isn't higher is it's probably a lineup that's expected to be duped a handful of times. But on paper, that's pretty solid looking. By the way, just got a bunch of questions in Discord too. I've only got a minute left here until I hand it over to Ben and Lofty. So here's what I'm going to do. After I finish up the show here, I'm going to hang out in Discord. I'll sim out all your guys' lineups for you, and I'll give you some feedback. So I'll be hanging out in Discord just after I finish out this last lineup. And then I am going to get to those lineups there. All right. We've got DFS main, Sam Darnold. I like how I called him Sam, like you guys are on first name basis. Just throwing all your players, just their first names. Sam, Kenneth, Blake, Jackson. All right, so you got Walker and Corum at tight end. Or sorry, running back. Walker, Corum. The one Corum lineup we built out earlier, we were able to make it positive. Let's see if we can do it with this one. JSN and Puka. All right. Butte. Colby Parkinson. And then you've got Shaheed in the flex. All right. And then you went with the Seahawks defense. First lineup that somebody's built with the Seahawks defense today. This does leave $900 in salary on the table. All right, let's run it though. Let's see how it looks. You can definitely upgrade some spots with the $900 you have to play with. Yeah, negative 65% sim ROI. So let's just see if we take out Shaheed and the Seahawks defense, just those two spots, and then optimize them. What comes up instead? All right, we got Sutton in the lineup. So Butte got moved to the flex. Broncos defense. Let's see. This should be better with the salary a little more optimized. Yeah, still negative, but not the negative 88% sim ROI, negative 33 instead. And then we've got Gesture, a FanDuel lineup, a Stidham FanDuel lineup. Let's do it. And you've got here Stidham with Walker and Corum. But we're getting more Corum lineups than Kyron lineups. That's not going to be indicative of what their ownership actually is. I think it's probably influenced by me a little bit pointing out Blake Corum as a potential contrarian option at the top of the show. But yeah, now everybody's submitting their Blake Corum lineups here. JSN and Puka. See how it works getting both JSN and Puka in over on the FanDuel side of things. Butte, Higbee, Barner. So double tight end, and then the Rams defense. All right. See if this one is positive. We got to finish with a positive lineup here. Got to get one nice positive one to finish. Hopefully this does it for us, Jesher. Not even close. Negative 74% sim ROI. So not quite positive on this one here. So let's go into Discord. We have to finish on a positive lineup. Have to finish on one. So let's try plugging in Einsteinium's lineup. We're just going to keep going. I'm going to plug in all of the lineups we have here in Discord until one of them is positive. If all of them are negative, then I could be here all day. But if we're here for another 4 hours trying to build a positive, it'll only get easier over time because eventually the games are going to start and they'll for sure know what good-looking lineups are. All right, so here's Einsteinium's lineup. He went with Jared Stidham at quarterback. At running back, he went Walker and Henderson. So our first Trevion Henderson lineup. Then at wide receiver, he went to both of the studs, Puka Nacua and JSN. Then he's got Devontae Adams. All right, so just all of the top wide receivers. Double tight end, he went Barner and Ingram. And then he went with the Patriots defense. All right, here's another bullet. Is this one going to be positive to close out the show? If not, Brad's lineup is up next. Oh, no, Brad didn't submit a lineup, just a question. Not positive. Negative. We continue on. Negative 45% sim ROI. Brad wants to know, is it truly about choosing that one player that no one else has to win one of these? No, not really. Like the actual goal to win, like you just have to have the highest scoring lineup. But I like to try to figure out ways where what is a path that you could be different. Because if you pick somebody on a 2-game slate that's 5% owned and scores 18 fantasy points, if you think you have a good read on somebody, you're just competing with less lineups than if you play all of the chalk. It doesn't mean that sort of lineup has to win. It's just something that I like to try to do for 2-game slates because I often think there are good lower owned plays you can differentiate. Like I think Corum and Henderson should be higher owned than they are. It doesn't mean you have to play somebody who's 5% owned. All right. Let's try Commando's lineup now. He's got a Stidham lineup over on FanDuel. Commando went with Stidham. At running back, he's got Spider-Man. All right, I'm going to start. Spider-Man. Whose nickname is Spider-Man at running back? All right, let's just plug in. I'm just going to keep going here. All right. Walker and Harvey. So he said Spider-Man with then Walker and Harvey. So I'm confused so far, but I'm going to keep going and see if I can figure this out. Then we got Puka Nacua and JSN. Okay, Matt Collins. Then you've got Troutman at tight end. All right, so the Spider-Man didn't even matter. He said Spider-Man, but that's not even a player. Because we've still got the rest of the lineup filled out. Troutman. Stevenson at the flex. Yeah. I've seen some of the people recommending other superheroes in the YouTube comments. Am I missing something? Is there a player whose nickname is Spider-Man that I just don't know? And then finally, the Rams defense. All right. Uses all the salary. Is this going to be the positive sim ROI lineup to close it out for us? Will this be it? It is very close, but not quite positive. Negative 2.9% sim ROI. We move on to the next lineup now. Nate's post. I was going to plug all these in Discord afterwards, but looks like I'm just doing it right here until we get to one of the positive ones. Yeah. Donnie Boone in chat says Ant-Man at tight end. Well, that works because we actually do have Anthony Edwards. Not an NFL player, but at least that is a superhero with a nickname that most of us know. All right, Stafford. Here we go. Nate's post. Bring us home. Bring us home. If not, Ben and Lofty showed up to work and they're sitting here to not actually do anything. So your lineup better be positive. Stafford. Then you went Walker and Harvey. We also run into a risk. If the next couple ones don't come out good, people are just going to intentionally submit shitty lineups that I'm here forever. Holland, Shaheed, Nacua. Okay. Then at tight end, you went with Ingram, although you spelled it like Brandon Ingram as opposed to Evan Ingram. And then you've got JSN in the flex with the Broncos defense. Give us a positive sim ROI. It is so cold in my office. It leaves $800 in salary on the table. That could be an uphill battle. It is so cold in my office. My feet are freezing. I want to be done. Negative 47% sim ROI. We got to plug in another one now. We got to keep going. It's the only way. All right. Tweezy Dreadhead. Let's go. Tweezy Dreadhead's lineup. He has Stafford, Harvey, and Corum. All right. Stafford went Harvey and Corum. And then at wide receiver, he went Sutton, Puka, and Adams. Puka and Adams. One thing that we're definitely seeing, tough slate. I think we've had way more negative sim ROI lineups than positive. We've barely had any positive sim ROI lineups, and maybe as many negative sim ROI lineups that we built out just today as what we've had the rest of the season combined. Higbee at tight end. You got Walker in the flex. And then finally, the Broncos defense. Let's see. Is this one going to be positive for us? Harvey, Stafford, Corum, Sutton, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, Tyler. Not even close. Negative 49% sim ROI. We keep going. One of these has to be a winner. You would think at some point. There's only one left in the Discord for us to plug in. All right. It's got to be a winner here, Daniels. You may I might get frostbite. If this lineup, this is a lot of pressure. If this isn't positive, I might die on stream. Stidham. All right. My hopes and dreams lie on Jared Stidham right now. He's got Kyron Williams and Kenneth Walker. All right, Kenneth Walker's in the lineup. That's good. Gives us a little bit of a hope at least. Then you went with Nacua and JSN. Okay. Cortland Sutton. Nothing crazy so far. Tight end. You went with Ferguson. No, this could be an issue. Ferguson doesn't project very well for us. At flex, Shaheed. He's very confident, though. He says he's got it at the end. All right, we'll see. We'll see. All right. He went with the Broncos defense. All right. Give us a pot. It's got $800 in salary left on the table. Oh boy. Oh, well, we got another one here. This has kind of been the standard now. We're pretty commonly getting lineups right around negative 50% sim ROI. All right. Let's see what we got here. Commando. It's another I could eyeball your lineup, Commando. That's not going to sim out positive. It's not. I'm not even gonna. I think that it's intentionally built a lineup. You got Evan Ingram in there, Travion Henderson. All right, let's see though. Let's try Jay Staterman's lineup over on FanDuel. He's trying to save my life here, and once again, my hopes and dreams lie on Jared Stidham simming out well. Jared Stidham, and he's got. He's got in the lineup. Oh no, it's Drake May. Okay, Drake May. Okay, so it's May at quarterback, and then you went with Kenneth Walker and Blake Corum. Okay, Blake Corum, Kenneth Walker. Then you got JSN. You got Whittington in the lineup. Nah, I mean there's no. We've got Whittington project for 1 fantasy point. You guys are just trolling me now. Now, this has to be a troll at this point. Puka Nacua, Higbee. You've got Matt Collins in the lineup. At tight end, we've got Higbee. And then you've got, who is it at the flex? Matt Collins. No, Matt Collins already in the lineup. We've already got Higbee. JSN, Whittington, Puka. Oh, we didn't plug a JSN yet. Okay, so JSN in the flex. And then at defense, you've got the Patriots. Yeah, this one's going to be negative also. Yeah, -7. We're regressing now. This one's -72%. We haven't, not only are we not getting positive line, we haven't even had a lineup better than -47% sim ROI in 20 minutes now. All right, here's what we're doing. I'm going to run the lineup here because now I'm actually curious. On FanDuel, 0% randomness. What is our optimal projected lineup by the most fantasy points? It's Drake May, Kenneth Walker, RJ Harvey, JSN, Puka Nacua, Pat Bryant, AJ Barner, Matt Collins, and the Rams defense. So we got a stack here of Matt Collins and Drake May. How does this come out? Let's see. Does this come out positive? Oh, we got one more super chat here as well. It did come out positive, but we got the super chat. So I have to plug in this these final super chats here now. All right, what do we get? Squeak Diesel just says lineup above and thanks. All right, let me try to find the lineup above that you're referencing. All right, it's a DraftKings lineup. So these are going to be this. I actually have to finish the show at some point or else Ben and Lofty are never going to get their time here. But let's plug in. We got 2 more lineups from super chats. Squeak Diesel, Drake May, Walker and Stevenson. Then you got Puka Nacua, Matt Collins. I feel good about this so far. Puka Nacua, Matt Collins, Cortland Sutton, Hunter Henry. And then you've got here Colby Parkinson in the flex and Seattle's defense. I think this could do it for us. I think this could be the one. Oh no, it's got $1,600 in salary left on the table. That's a lot of salary left over. That could be an impediment. Yeah, negative, our normal range, -46% similar. I could see in the back, Lofty is so bored right now. He cannot be less interested in me building shitty lineups right now. All right, Thomas. Here we go, Thomas. This is win or lose. This has to be the last one. I just can't build lineups that are expected to lose money the entire day. Drake May. He's got Kyron Williams and Kenneth Walker. Wide receiver, you got Nacua, Mims, and Butte. Okay. Butte, Mims, Henry. I assume DA is Devontae Adams. We never figured out who Spider-Man is, by the way. That lineup was never solved. And then you've got no defense listed here, but the only defense that fits is the Broncos. So I'm just going to plug them in. Here we go. Final one. Thomas Coulter trying to bring us home. Will it be positive or will it be negative 50% like every other lineup we've built? Yeah, right around negative 50% like every other lineup that we've built. Guys, I have to go. My feet are freezing. Lofty and Ben are bored out of their minds. They have a show to do. That is going to do it for me. If you have not done it, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're looking for more content for myself and all the other guys here, I've got a same game parlay post over to Tails. I've got a touchdown bet posted over to Tails, and there could be more stuff coming throughout the day as well. So download the Tails app. If you're enjoying the experience over on Tails, leave us a nice 5-star rating and review and stick around. You got Lofty and Ben coming up next, and then finally, it'll be Spags and Eric on the deep dive. So guys, good luck with all your lineups. Hopefully, one of the lineups you submitted, maybe we'll actually win a GPP. Even if our single lineup sims don't like it, it doesn't mean it can't end up being a decent lineup. So guys, have a great day. Good luck. See you back here later.
Yo, shit. Are we on?
Yeah, I fell asleep as well.
My God. Woo. What was that?
I don't
Fell
know.
asleep.
I know. The games may have started. I don't honestly know, but we're here. Don't worry, chat. We'll rein this back in. We've got it under control for you.
Hey, gotta wake back up. Heart rate's at like 39 right now. That was exhilarating stuff. Nobody.
How'd you come up with 39?
Not a single person. And it was all sitting in that negative 45.
Tough scenes. But you know what? We're gonna be building out some positive things here, both on the betting and DFS side. My favorite slate. Thanksgiving's Thanksgiving, but this is the best football day of just two elite games. I love Championship Sunday.
Yeah, man, it's good. And I'm odder than most. Whenever there's a weird scenario where you've got like a Jared Stidham starting, I like it. Because I just think you really have no idea what's going to happen.
Anytime you have uncertainty in DFS, you have the opportunity to make better stands. Because if you have a great read on Stidham today and you get him right, you might be ahead of everybody. You might be different than everybody. And on a 2-game slate, yeah, building the lineup is important, but being different is the most important because it's very hard to stand out in these giant tournaments when you have a finite amount of plays like this.
I am going to take some stands today for what it's worth. It's nothing crazy, right? But it's guys that we're not getting to a lot of within the tools and stuff that I am boosting. These 2-game slates, you see it all the time where like you need a guy that's 5% owned. And he's not the craziest play. It's just you don't get to a lot of him because other guys look better and then they fail. You know, I'm not talking about I'm getting to like 50% Nate Atkins. Right? I'm not getting to
don't do that.
40% McLaughlin. I'm not saying any of that. But I do think there are other guys, and I actually want to start the show with this. We will go position by position, but I want to start with a specific spot we'll get into because I do think the running back position, which is where we're going to start, and then we'll flip it to quarterback. We'll go a little out of order, but we'll get you where we need to go, or where you need to go. I do think that's one of the most interesting spots to me. So first off, we're finally here. Welcome to the NFL Deeper Dive Championship Edition. Ben said the best slate of the year, best slate of football for the year. If you don't mind, take a single second this afternoon. Atone for your sins. Hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment down below. Don't do that. I always say that. It's second nature.
Don't need to do that.
Yeah, this says 0 shelf life. No one will see this after it's over. But hit the thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. We got about a foot of snow so far. and now we're about to get an ice storm following that. It's pure misery around here, dude. It feels like -10, they said. So not enjoying it. The moment this show's over, I'm going to go break the snowblower out again, Ben, hit everything,
right.
and hope to get back inside by 3 o'clock and then go do it again. So
yeah, it's not too bad here yet. Yeah, I don't know. Just
you probably have an
no,
HOA there, right? Like you probably don't need to do anything.
yeah. Oh no, I don't have to deal with anything. I just mean in general though. Like I was worried, knock on wood, we're gonna be just fine with the show, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, talk to me. I think like most slates, we only have 4 quarterbacks. When you're talking about a 2-game slate, we only have 4 quarterbacks. Running back to me is always, because A, you could play 3 of them, that could be different. And B, on a slate like this, just the way this turned out, we don't really have any superstar, McCaffrey and Gibbs and Jonathan, they're all gone. They're all gone. The best running backs on the slate they're not bad players, but they are not the best running backs in the NFL. Whereas wide receiver, a little different.
All right, so we'll do that first. Nice $20 super chat from Hunter. Appreciate you, man. Co-shipped the main Seahawks showdown last week for $24K off a single $20 lineup used from the Sims. Stokastic, Kenneth Walker, Ass Tat incoming. Big thanks to Ben Laffey and Greg. Shout out to you, man. Big win. That's awesome. It's also a good place to start because I'm not taking a stand on Kenneth Walker. I'm jamming Kenneth Walker. I am.
Yeah,
I don't know where you're at there, but I find him as the toughest guy to get away from today.
For sure. I was fortunate that I was really on him last week, and I caught a break because who knows what it would have been, even though I think he was destined for a big game regardless. But obviously the runway cleared with Charbonnet, and sure, will he get 100% of the carries? Absolutely not. Will he be clearly more of a bell cow workhorse than he would have if Charbonnet was there? I think that's also clear. Velus Jones and Helani are not going to be as impactful in any game script. If Seattle falls behind, Kenneth Walker will be just fine. And if they're winning, Kenneth Walker will be just fine. So yeah, he's probably the most obvious play on the slate, and I think the field will agree.
Yeah, he feels like the most uninteresting piece on this slate, and not in a bad way, but just if you're going to fade him, you go for it. But it becomes difficult because Ben mentioned it at the top of the show. There aren't really that many great alternatives. And if you're fading him, you have to get both of them right. You've said that this is your like patented kind of thought process when it comes to DFS. And we talk about this a lot, usually on main slates, but it's like, all right, if you're going to go here, you need, like, say you think that this guy could get a good share in the backfield. You're like, okay, if you're going to go to this guy first, you need to be right about his workload. Second, you need to be right that he actually produces with that workload. There's more than just one thing you have to get right. And if you're fading Kenneth Walker, you're going to have to get 2 of these, pretty much not all of them, but kind of timeshare guys right. The one guy I wanted to talk to you about was Trevion Henderson. When I say I am taking a bit of a stand, I've boosted Henderson a bit because I'm not thoroughly convinced that the backfield in New England is cemented as, okay, Ramondre Stevenson is just the guy no matter what. I know he's a better pass blocker. I know they trust him a little bit more. I'm not saying they don't, but you saw what happened from the wild card game to the divisional round with the same team that's playing today in the Rams. Kyron Williams and Blake Corum essentially split work. And then the following game in Chicago, Kyron Williams was getting all of it. So what is it? Is it Kyron Williams is now the guy this week, or they revert back to what we've been seeing primarily since week 7, where Blake Corum and Kyron Williams get pretty equal work on the ground, and Williams is used a little bit more as a pass catcher out of the backfield on a team that doesn't really even throw to the running backs. So when it comes to Trevion Henderson, do they potentially, again, 2-game slate, pretty weak, very weak position, do they potentially take a hot hand approach if Henderson breaks one early? We've seen him do it in the past. We've seen Henderson, twice in the last 6 weeks break slates. I do think that's one of those guys who's getting completely overlooked, totally ignored. And I, at the very least, want to get over the field on him, even if that means I'm getting just with the field on Ramondre Stevenson. It does not mean I'm not getting to Stevenson.
Yeah, I mean, on a 2-game slate, it's all nuanced, in my opinion. Very rarely are you full fading anyone of value because you don't need to. Thing I like about Trevion Henderson, is if you get it right, you're talking about slate winning upside. Now, if you get it wrong, you're done. It's over. If he gets 3, you're not making up those points. Like, it's just not going to work. But Travion Henderson has shown, I mean, he had a couple crazy explosive games where he was breaking off 70-yard runs. Do I expect that against the Broncos? No. Is it possible, though? Absolutely. So I get it. I think we're going to be talking about him and Corum a little bit throughout the show as guys that are not in the best positions, but could be those leverage spots in a running back situation that's not clear for most of these teams. All 4 of the teams really at this point, because even RJ Harvey, who I do like, and I think you could quote unquote buy low, we saw McLaughlin take real carries early in that game. It wasn't mop up duty or anything like that. So there's not a lot of clarity. And when there's not a lot of clarity, I'm more apt to roll the dice just like you are.
Yeah, McLaughlin had multiple carries before Harvey had a single one. So does that mean anything? It doesn't really mean anything outside of there's a lot of ambiguity here. Like that doesn't mean I'm jamming McLaughlin. It just means that, you're not sure. I mean, I've negatively boosted Harvey last week. I still got to a decent amount of him, but I think I ended at like 40 instead of whatever the field was at, which was up there in that spot. Ended up having like a break-even week. But the point remains, and another guy I was just wrong on. I boosted Corum, and Corum ended up not getting any work, really. I think he finished with 6 carries. They were all late in the game, and a couple were in overtime. So it's really hard to say. But outside of Kenneth Walker, who I think it's reasonable to say should handle a legitimate bell cow workload in a game that potentially sends you to the Super Bowl, I don't see a single running back. And this is what I'm getting at. I don't see a single running back outside of Kenneth Walker where I just go, yeah, they're the clear bell cow, like 80+% touch game here. Even Kyron Williams, I think he's the most likely to be next after what we saw last week. But between him and Corum, we've seen so many other weeks where it was a lot closer than that. Henderson and Stevenson, we've seen them run the hot hand multiple times before. And with RJ Harvey, like you said with McLaughlin, you don't really know. So if there are guys down there as like the second part of what has been primarily a backfield, and they're getting 5-6%, I do think it makes sense to at least consider giving them a bit of a boost in the event that one of them pops off.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. Again, there's not a lot of uncertainty behind Seattle, but and Chad just brought up a good point about we have Stidham in there. And I know we're talking running backs, but there is a chance that philosophically Denver changes a little bit. And maybe that means additional targets for a guy like Harvey, who can catch the ball already, but we simply don't know what that's going to look like. So that's another wrinkle to this. I think we know what the Rams are going to do. There's plenty to go around. And I think we know New England, it's a fluid situation as well, but there's so many variables because how often to have a quarterback that we have not seen get thrust into this, it's a really interesting situation because normally we're talking about we saw Stidham for the fourth quarter after Nix got hurt. We saw Stidham for the second half after Nix got hurt. He literally got hurt as the game ended. So we have not seen anything.
You have no idea. Speaking of, I did post a boosted 50% same game parlay for this one over on Tails. RJ Harvey receptions is included in that one. And as you know, Ben, you can just one-click tail this baby, whatever book you want. Like, they bet it on BetMGM. Boom, tail parlay loaded straight into your bet slip. Don't take a single second finding the Broncos alt spread or any of these alts I'm ever posting in there. Ben is. Find them just like that. Simple stuff. You want?
I'm a man of the people. Well, not really, but I saved my 50% FanDuel boost for this specific show because just like we started the season, not that this is the last of the last because we got the Super Bowl, but we're not going to do multiple games clearly. I want a touchdown scorer from you. I have one in mind. I'm going to put it on Tails for a little, if you're game, a little 1-2 collab. And I'll put the link in chat for you guys.
Let's do it. And you got to let us know when it's posted. I'm going to expect you to post it right now.
Literally on the show. So
I'll use the FanDuel 50% boost as well on that. Give me Travion Henderson at plus 270, man. Powered one. Is that confirmed? Franklin just got ruled out. Keep an eye on that. Let you know. But
That'll change some things. You're going with Travion? Okay. I know we haven't talked about him, but just so people have time to tail, we want to get as many people in the community sweat. I know we haven't talked receivers, and I think there will be pay down receivers with Denver now. I like Cooper Kupp, though. I'm going aggressive. I know there's big time names. We've got Puka and JS and all that. Cooper Kupp in a big game at home, he was a factor before Seattle didn't have to do anything last week. I expect him to be a part of this game. I'm going to throw him in, and I'm going to boost this right now. And I've got, it's a 50% boost. 20 plus 2180, 21 to 1 on this, Lafe.
All right, so post that 21
I'm
to
posting
1
it right now.
My limit's $10 on FanDuel boosts, but at the same time, that's still a wonderful ROI if we end up winning that. So let's do it. And let me know when it's up. I'm going to tail it with the one click.
Posting as we speak. All right. Give that 30
Oh, look
seconds.
at that. It's already up, baby.
All right. Well, the mapping will appear. Chad, I'm gonna put the link in chat for you guys, and I know that most of you are familiar with what we're doing here at Tails, but this is why you want to be on there, because you can instantly tail this bet with us. Join in on the sweat. Be part of the community. Find bets for these games. Don't be searching the books. You get the best lines. And when you tail it, we're going to run the flame emojis up. I just dropped it in chat.
Yep, it's right here.
Let's have a day.
Mapping is up. And then one other thing, too. If you want to, Ben and I are going to be hanging out in here today, shooting the breeze.
There's some hot takes in there already.
Yeah, I know. Eitan had a wild hot take.
He goes over the top. But there were other hot takes that were he just goes full Stidham MVP Nick Foles situation.
I kind of love it though to win I kind of love it at plus 1900. If he wins this game, anything's possible. But
so I will give him this: the Broncos don't have star power like that, where it's like, oh. If the Broncos win the Super Bowl, it's going to have to probably be the quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not going to be Patrick Surtain for 2 passes defended.
Exactly.
It's not going to happen. Anyway, we'll be over there for sure. So I want to dig into this game. I ran the Sims, and at running back, I did want to give you an idea of what exposures look like, Ben, just since we already broke down the running back position. This is why I boosted Henderson a little bit, because he's getting 5%. Obviously, you guys do whatever you want, but 5%, I'm at 3.3. I think I got him up to like 15 or something. Kyron's there. I got Corum up a little bit. Aside from that, I didn't get any of the other guys who you don't see on here. Still have an insane amount of Walker, good amount of Harvey. I got with the field on Stevenson, but this is where the Sims would run if you ran it on 2 uniques. Otherwise, unadulterated Sims run. Outside of the uniques, no player boost. That's what you have. Now, at quarterback, this is where things get interesting. I'm serious, man. I have to know what you're doing here, because the exposure we're getting to Stafford seems so low. I mean, yes, Seattle is a very stout defense. There's simply no denying that. They're very good. They went up twice in a row against the San Francisco team, one time coming off a bye, that was without Trent Williams in week 18 and Ricky Pearsall, right? Ayuk never played a game this year, and it appears he's never going to play a game with them again. So they were completely depleted as far as weapons go. And Trent Williams is as important to that team as any player is to any team in the league. And then the next time they face him, they have no George Kittle either, right? So all I can say is you go back and you look at the last time that this Seattle team, I'm not saying this is going to be equal results today, but the last time the Seattle team faced a good offense, it was the Rams, and Stafford and them put up 37. So I look at this as it could be a low scoring game, but also Stafford could just go out there and carve them up, and it could evolve into a shootout again. Another quarterback that I am boosting a little bit. You're more than welcome to tell me if you think I'm wrong here, but I just don't see enough of a difference. And I know the price point isn't that far off. It's still easy to build lineups on this slate. You're really only paying for you're only paying for Puka or JSN. Outside of that, nobody is really expensive at all. I don't think it's hard to get to Stafford, and I simply don't see guys like May and Darnold, who we don't know what that oblique injury even will look like, knowing that last week he didn't need to throw. And then Jared Stidham, I can't go into this slate with 4% Stafford. If it bites me, fine, I can eat that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not going to do that. I think Stafford will be a little more popular too. I don't think it's a stretch to see he could end up being the second most popular quarterback on the slate. It does seem like Drake May, given everything, will be the most popular, but I don't think it's the other three are kind of in the same bucket. And I'm not done just yet. I did build a little earlier because I thought I might lose power, and I'm certainly over the field on Stafford lineups.
So
He's played him twice. That I think is huge. Like he's seen this. I think Seattle's defense is. I like Seattle. I bet Seattle in the game. I think Seattle's going to beat them, but that doesn't really matter for what we're talking about here. He's seen them. They move the ball. The volume will be there in any game script. He's not in a slate with mobile quarterbacks. Drake May can move, but this is not where we're worried about, well, one quarterback might have 17, 18 points on the ground because they have 60 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. That's not going to happen. Darnold's not going to do that. Stidham's not going to do that. Drake May, to a lesser extent, could. So Stafford is on a more even playing field. There's a lot to like. The matchup's brutal, but there are 4 great teams left. The matchups are pretty brutal across the board, honestly.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And by the way, I think chat brought up a couple interesting ones here. A few of the guys talking about the Rashid Shaheed rushing prop. Was it Lee? Shaheed over 5.5 is the only good Shaheed play. It is an interesting spot, honestly, for Rashid Shaheed. You might find some 4.5s out there with the same juice. I would be on board with that. I don't think it's crazy at all. I mean, obviously, teams don't do things the same way they did the week before. So the fact that Shaheed got 2 rushing attempts last week, I know some people are saying, well, Charbonnet's out. I don't hate it, Ben, but it's also entirely possible that Shaheed doesn't see a rushing attempt either.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think him and Mims are in a similar bucket. I don't think it's crazy that Mims could have a rushing attempt. And if you really want to dig out, Barner is their I don't know if they have a name for it, but he does their tush pushes, so he'll probably have a chance to go over 0.5. But yeah, listen, Shaheed's a gadget player. I don't know, you know what you're getting into if you play Shaheed. You need one of his touches to be 90% of his points. I think that's really how you have to think of it, because he's not the type of guy, barring something really outrageous, where he's just going to give you a lot of quality production. It's going to be nothing, and then he has a 16-point play because he just broke a 90-yard touchdown.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. A lot of people don't like Rashid Shaheed today. I think he's fine. And really the reason I think he's fine is because not that he's Rashid Shaheed or that he's particularly good, but I think he's fine. They just have underutilized him. The other options are not great. I mean, Matt Collins expected to play. Actually, is he in? Do we have the announcement, right? What's that?
I don't know officially, but I'm pretty sure playing, yeah.
I thought he was expected to play as well, yeah. Here he did, making the barefoot entrance. Cool, brother.
He plays he is someone that could be a interesting piece to this slate, because you have Diggs, you have Booty, then it's pretty wide open. You've got the tight ends and the running backs, but I don't know how much he factors into the slate. I don't really have much exposure to Matt Collins, and I might end up regretting that.
I have some, not a lot. I mean, 10% right now, I'm fine with it, honestly. I really, it doesn't bother me whatsoever. He's in, by the way. I don't have an issue with it. 10%, basically getting with the field. But my point on Rashid Shaheed, right? You're getting 16% here, almost 17%. I don't really see anybody else that just stands out as head and shoulders above him as far as cheap guys go. So if we're talking in chat, right, going, yeah, Rashid Shaheed's a bad play today, maybe like as an isolated play he is, sure. But when you look at wide receiver, who else is actually that much better than he is? Yes, Pat Bryant without Troy Franklin looks good. There's no doubt about it. at really the same price point, but it's still Jared Stidham. We don't know what we're going to get out of him. You don't know if he peppers Ingram or Sutton. Cooper Kupp, another guy. I know you have interest in him today. Totally justified. I'm getting a decent amount right now as well, 27%. It's still somebody who's liable to have 3 targets and 2 catches for 10 yards in this game. So just going down the list, Marvin Mims, Mac Hollins in his first game back in 2 months, Kayshon Boutte. I don't think there's a singular value play that just stands out above the rest. And I don't even think there's one that's that much sneakier than the rest.
Yeah, I mean, I when I say that he's a gadget player, I guess I should clarify, because whether you think he is or he isn't, he's being used like one. I don't know how you really debate that, because his targets in the last 4 games, and this loops into the playoffs, is 1, 1, 1, and 2. That's 5 targets in 4 weeks. I mean, whether he can or can't run, in New Orleans, it was a different situation. But clearly the role that he's playing here is explosive playmaker. I don't see a lot of pass where volume gets him there. You're going to need something. And even last week, he scored on a kickoff return and he gave you 8.
I know. Now, to be fair, I want to be real clear about this, because I do think this can be very misleading. I think all of the box scores last week, including even to some extent Kenneth Walker, but he's irrelevant because there's no Charbonnet and you're just going to play him, are to be thrown out the window. Like, that game was never competitive. Sam Darnold threw 17 times. There were 12 total completions on the Seattle side in the entire game, right? Like, if we were to use that game as guidance for anything, you'd say JSN stinks too, because he had 3 for 19.
Well, I played him, so that explains what happened there.
But you get what I'm saying, right? Like, game was against it was a skeleton crew in San Francisco. I'm with you. Even in the other games, Shaheed hasn't been used all that often, but neither has Mims. Right?
No, I know. I'm just saying the Rams game, 38-37. He had 1 target.
I know. I know. But also Cooper Kupp in that same game had 4 and he had 3 for 39 and he doesn't return kicks.
Oh, listen, it's a 2-game slate. I want to be clear. Shaheed is in play. I just think that you know what you're kind of getting into. And if I was going to take a flyer, I would rather have, going back to the beginning of the show, I'd rather do it at running back with a guy like Henderson over Shaheed. There's too many other pay down wide receivers for me. And
I promise you, this is not me dying on the Rashid Shaheed hill. I'm saying that I don't think any of these guys are unplayable. That's all I'm saying.
If you're on the field today, you're
playable.
Basically playable.
Dude, Shaheed has 3 return touchdowns in his last 6 games too. I'm not saying that's necessarily predictive, but he is very good on returns. Like, this guy's elite on returns. He returned one against the Rams.
Player. Yeah, he's an awesome player. Like I said, it's more the role that he plays. And I know last week's, I do think when you get into the playoffs, one of the biggest advantages you can have is groupthink off what we just saw. People see something and they just take it, oh, this guy sucked, he's going to suck. This guy was amazing, he's going to be amazing. And it absolutely doesn't work like that. But it also could work the same way. There is a chance, I'd say it's not likely, but there's a chance that Seattle just smokes the Rams in the same way that they did the Niners, and the game plays out like that, and Darnold throws the ball 18 times, and they just do nothing again. That is possible. I'd say it's doubtful.
Yeah, unlikely, but possible. The other thing, though, with guys like Rashid Shaheed and Marvin Mims, and you know what? Even Kayshon Boutte, is that one on a 2-game slate between 4 teams, all of whom have good defenses. Like, you may say, oh, the Rams defense isn't as good as these others, and I'd agree, but they're still not bad, right? Like, it's still a top 10 overall defense for the most part. If these games all just end up being low scoring, and a Rashid Shaheed or a Mims or a Kayshon Boutte has a 50-yard touchdown, right, and catches their one opportunity, their one deep ball for a touchdown, that changes everything, and I just don't want to be fully boxed out of that. That's all I'm saying.
That's why the Kenneth Walker thing is so tricky, because Kenneth Walker, if you fade him, you could get it right and you still needed him. That's what really sucks. Because if it's a low scoring slate, right, Kenneth Walker might get like 13 or 11.
Yep.
And you're like, man, what an amazing stand I just made. well, you better hope the permutation boxed him out because there's still a chance the raw points are what you need. Like Puka could get 16 today, and if there's a lot of paydown options, the raw points are enough where he's actually still in the optimal builds.
Raw points on a day like today are insanely valuable.
So valuable. Points per dollar are not, it's not like a normal slate.
No. Right. I mean, now, if your $3,300 guy were to get you 15, that looks incredible. And points per dollar wise, you know, he crushed it. Like he 5X's his salary. But for a lot of these more expensive guys, as you said, with Walker, if Walker gives you 15, I'll say it right now, that's probably enough.
Yeah. I agree.
It's probably
That's
enough.
why it's tough to fade him.
Yeah. Unless the games just go nuclear, which I guess is possible. But
if you think that the games go over, again, on a 2-game slate, I think you should work backwards on some lineups, both with the tools, and that's why these tools are so great because you can really craft it like that. If you think the games go way over the totals, you should build differently than if you don't. And I think in a game, if you really think they go over, that's more an apt spot to fade a guy like Kenneth Walker, in my opinion.
yeah, for sure. And by the way, do yourselves a massive favor. You know, football's winding down, but Ben will tell you PGA is in full swing and is about to be like big time. And the prize pools for PGA are massive. We have the sims for PGA and all of these incredible tools, all the simulation tools, everything you need for PGA. Nobody has more than we do for golf. NBA as well is another one. Full swing. A lot of great basketball left. You have NBA every single day. With PGA now, you have the showdown contests and all of that where you can play individual contests every day of those 4 days from Thursday through Sunday. If you're a Sims user or you're not, and you're like, well, it's too late for me to sign up with any of the sportsbook partners with Stokastic and get the NFL Sims for a month, because what's the point? Even though there still would be technically because it's $5 or $10, but do it with NBA, do it with PGA, do it with MMA. We have the Sims for all of these, right?
MMA is back.
What's
that was wild last night. I actually was going to interject, sorry, and just say, don't short MMA. It is back, and the slate last night was insane. I played a good amount of MMA last night, and that's another great sport with these tools. I don't know a lot about MMA. I bet it somewhat heavily, but for DFS, and I'm leaning exclusively on our tools so far, and I'm going to be doing that all year.
Yeah. Baseball sims, NBA, PGA, MMA, NASCAR, all of that. As I said, guys, if you haven't done it, all you do, click on one of these, whichever ones, and depending on your state, you're going to have more or less. Like Onyx is a sweepstakes book. It's in 40 plus states. Sleepers in a lot of spots. You don't have to be in a legal betting state. That's play 5, get 55. Onyx is spend 10, get 100 in Onyx cash. The sign-up offers are alone are enough for you to want to do it, but just click one of them, sign up, deposit the $5 or $10, take a screenshot of your welcome email and your first settled bet or pick'em lineup, and simply email us at support@stokastic.com with the screenshots. Tell us what you want. So say you signed up on Underdog and Onyx, you email us with the screenshots, takes 2 seconds to do that, and go, hey, can I get a month of PGA and a month of NBA? Boom. It's a $300 value right there that you just got for a total of $20. And now you're free rolling those sims and able to use those sims in whatever contest. Yes, including low stakes contests where most people aren't using these type of powerful tools. That's the way to do it, Ben. I can't stress it enough.
Yep. It's simple, it's easy, and so many people have already done it, and now they've got a process nailed down in these sports for the rest of the year. It's that simple. So good stuff there. I just saw a comment that I wanted to, right here. What we're just talking about, I couldn't agree more. I like Seattle to win the actual game, but the Rams to put up nice DFS scores. I couldn't agree more. I think that's how it plays out. That's how I built a lot of my lineups.
Okay.
With that in mind. Yeah.
I like the Rams here.
I hope the Rams win. It's funny. This is a weird day. I bet the Broncos and I bet the Seahawks, and I hope the Patriots and the Rams win. Business and, heart and head are two different places today. I am rooting against my bets in some regard.
That's a true hedge right there. It's like the life hedge. Eh?
But I don't hate these. It's like I don't hate Seattle by any stretch. I think they're going to win.
I don't like Seattle though, because they've always had the Eagles number somehow. Like, I don't know what it is. They always
I don't like the Broncos.
Eagles typically handle the Rams well and can't beat the Seahawks. So just one of those odds. I want the Broncos to go to the Super Bowl for sure.
Yeah, I want them out. I mean, this is crazy coming from me. Not that anyone cares, but I hate the Patriots more than any franchise ever. But I love Drake May and I love Vrabel. So this is I love this team.
You want them in the Super Bowl, huh?
I do. I can't believe I'm saying that. I went to school. I went to UMass, and I had to endure all the garbage of the Patriots. But this is such a fun team. They're just such a cool team, and I don't like the Broncos.
I just want people to be
eliminated.
I just want people to be annoyed that Jared Stidham's in the Super Bowl. I think it'd be great, dude.
I just can't believe that people think that they have no chance and that there's a drop. There's a drop off, sure, but I can't believe people think it's so immense between Knicks and Stidham.
Well, I'll ask you a question. When we talked on Tuesday, do you remember what the spread was?
Yeah, we were talking about it pushing 6, I believe, and it's dropped.
And now 3.5. Pretty much painted 3.5 across the board, including Penny and including Circa. So you have books that many would consider sharp at 3.5.
Yeah, the Broncos have certainly, the buyback has come in. Where do the Broncos have the advantage? Well, first of all, they're at home. Second of all, I think their defense certainly has the advantage. They don't have the advantage at quarterback, but I don't think they're at a massive disadvantage in many spots, to be honest.
No, quarterback.
Yeah, quarterback for sure. But how big of the gap is it?
We're about to find out. We're going to find out in just over an hour, man. Eric and Spags are going to take you guys all the way up to lock, and we're going to find out in an hour if Sean Payton has figured something out with Stidham. I happen to think he can, but also, the other thing is, I like Drake May today just because it's a 4-gamer, and I'll go back to quarterback for a second here. We already talked about running back. We're talking about quarterback. We talked a lot about wide receiver. Would you agree that the bottom tier of receiver is more important than the top tier? Like Nakua and JSN, you just play them.
Yes.
And a lot of that is what your build looks like. If I'm triple stacking Stafford with Nakua in there, I'm not getting to JSN, right? Because it's likely Nakua and Adams and Walker, and I'm not getting to JSN. But I do think getting to Kupp or Shaheed in those type of lineups makes a lot of sense.
Sure. I mean, I think that clearly of the 2 games, more people are going to full onslaught the second game. You're going to see a lot of those type of builds, more so with the Rams, I would say, where you have like Stafford, Kyron, Puka, one of the tight ends, and then people will bring it back with Kenneth Walker +1, a Kupp, a Shaheed. Maybe they'll jam JSN and double punt, take the Broncos defense, who is criminally underpriced. But I still look at it and think, you're going to have some awkward builds. Or for me, I know we're giving general tips. It's risky, but leave a full team off. You want to be different, just don't play one team fully.
Sure.
People don't do that.
I also have plenty of lineups where it's Stafford stacked doubles without Nakua. And then I have JSN coming back, because I think most people who stack Stafford are going to want Nakua in there. I have some weird ones with like Adams and Ferguson, Adams and Parkinson, stuff like that with the JSN run back. But I do think if you're not playing the Nakua or the JSN in these lineups, you're looking for, and this isn't unique, but you're looking for leverage somewhere, just because there's really no cheap wide receiver, again, that stands out to me as somebody that I'm just jamming.
No, definitely not. And yeah, I think that's kind of, when we were watching Greg for the last 60 minutes of his show, as he was signing off, he did mention something about, someone asked, do you have to find that like 5% guy to be different? And sure, that helps. But the other way that helps is just the permutation. So doing something within players that are all reasonable, that are just different. And again, the tools can really help you do that. Like for me today, I have some Drake May lineups that have no wide receivers. It's just Drake May, one of his running backs, Hunter Henry, something like that. And hoping that May is mobile he throws a touchdown to maybe the back or the tight end. Because everyone that plays Drake May, for the most part, is going to have at least one of Diggs or Booty. I think that's pretty clear. So I'm not being different by finding this crazy guy.
I'd say Diggs or Henry, not Diggs or Booty.
Yeah, well, I'm just clearing out wide receiver, though.
Oh,
like,
okay,
you know what I'm saying? Like, you have to have someone, but you could even go more aggressive. If you think it's low scoring, what about May and just Henderson?
Mm-hmm. I don't hate that at all. Because if Henderson rips an 80-yarder through the air, it's very possible that just gets there. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm with you.
And again, you just want to be different. I'd rather do that than play like, I don't even know. You said a made up person before. I don't even remember his name.
Terrence Ferguson?
No. You were like, I'm not playing Johnny Atkins. Yeah, that's not a real person.
I did bet him to score a touchdown because someone said we need a Scott Matlock guy for this week. And Greg and I went through it on Friday. I was like, give me Nate Atkins, man. Why not?
Yeah, like, you want to be different, play Bo Nix. You'll be very different, and then you will lose. You know what I mean? Like, you have to find that balance between being different and being stupid.
Somebody said that you're tripping and it's disrespecting Bo Nix, but that's not what this is. I mean, really, if anything, I think it's more of a testament to the Broncos defense, to the home field advantage, and to Peyton being a good coach. I mean, everything Ben said has kind of bared itself out across the week because they went from 5.5-point dogs to 3.5-point dogs. Now, yeah, if Knicks were playing, what do you think? Broncos short favorites, like 1.5-point favorites here?
Something like that. Yeah, I mean,
why? What would you put them at? Because I mean, they're not more than a field goal favorite.
No, inside a field goal, they would be favorite, but I don't think
like 1.5, 2.5, maybe 2.5 points.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm very surprised, to just be honest, and maybe it's a bad read on my part, but you coined this and you were right on it, and it's different. I get it, but Mac Jones and Brock Purdy, we saw that during the year, and it doesn't mean that Brock Purdy's terrible or anything, but you can mask it. Not to mention, I don't like him, but Sean Payton knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
he will have this guy ready at home. He will. I don't know what that means.
My best call on the year was when I got laughed at for saying play Davis Mills. Stroud was out. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's not like, again, it's the point you're making is that you don't know until you know. And sometimes these guys are more capable than we think. Like Mac Jones and Davis Mills are not awful. They're just not great starter caliber quarterbacks. But everyone's capable of having themselves a decent game. And that's it.
We had a good question from Supreme Juice. Favorite prop bet of the first game? For me, it would be, and again, shop it. I'm going to go with the narrative that RJ Harvey will be active through the air. I like the over on his receiving yards today. I think that if they fall behind, sure, even easier. But even if they don't, I expect them to craft Stidham with some easy receptions. Who better to get the ball to than RJ Harvey? So the over on his receiving yards for me.
I posted that on Tails on Friday at 19.5. Yeah, man.
Look at that. You see the synergy? Yeah, Evan Ingram.
Which means he's going for like 2 now.
Oh, if we're lucky. He might not even, he could be the 4th-string running back by the time kick goes the way we go. But no, I think that's the type of thing. The books don't know how good Stidham's going to be either. Keep that in mind.
And in his 2 starts that he's made with Denver in 2023, he targeted his running backs 9 and 13 times in those 2 games. So, yeah, I'd like to think that's possible there. But I'm with you. I bet that earlier in the week. I think it's an interesting spot for him for sure. Let's get into this tight end. It's only going to take a second before we turn it over to Eric and Spags here. I think we've covered a lot. I think we're decent pacing today. Got the show started a little late, and by a little late, it was like 16 minutes late. Thanks to should we thank Greg or the people sending him those lineups?
I don't know. I turn it on and they're just discussing Spider-Man. I don't know if what's going on. If that's just too much for me. So let's talk tight end.
I like Hunter Henry a decent amount. This is the type of spot where he can thrive. He was quiet last week. They didn't really need him in that game. The best offensive player for the New England Patriots was CJ Stroud, right? So that's just the way the game went. Barner, a lot of him. And then you get into this really weird scenario with LA. I'm gonna let you close this out, and I'll just give you two thoughts of my own. I'm gonna get to Barner and Henry. I will get to some Evan Ingram, knowing that Franklin is out and knowing that we don't have any idea what Stidham's, who he's actually going to look to. Evan Ingram could become very interesting by simply because of us having no idea what it's going to look like today, and Courtland Sutton having a very difficult matchup himself. The only other spot I'd throw out there, Terrence Ferguson has been somebody that Matthew Stafford is willing to look towards in the end zone, and not just inside the 20, but deep shots to this guy. If you wanted something weird, somebody cheap, you wanted to try and pay up elsewhere, Ferguson to me is one of those guys that I likely get a little over the field on. And you know what? Not difficult to do at all, knowing that he has single-digit ownership. Do you need to go double tight end in a week like this? No. But you talk about raw points, Ben. It's possible that some of these tight ends score, and they're just better raw point scorers than the large majority of wide receivers today.
Definitely, yeah. Friend of the show, Sean Preston was just asking about that, and I agree. You really only have a couple options, I think, him or Hooper, but Ferguson at least is attached to Stafford, who could throw a lot today. So, and I really think Barner didn't really get a fair shake. If you want to throw out last week, he should be more involved for sure, but Hunter Henry's the class of it. It's a weak tight end position, so like 8 to 10 might be all you need with some of these guys. I guess we'll close it on this. I don't know what this means, but I'm going to take it as disrespect because anything Kyler Murray does is not good. Ben and Kyler Murray have the same decorator. Okay. It's good to know. I wish I had that Kyler Murray. Kyle Murray. I thought you said Kyler Murray. I'm thinking of the quarterback. Maybe. I don't know who Kyle Murray is. Maybe it's
I
the
assume
analyst.
he's talking about Kyler Murray.
Okay, well, then I'm going back to my original point. I wish I had that Kyler Murray money, but I assume his home is better furnished than mine. I mean, what are we doing? But shout out to Kyler, who's not even close to the playoffs ever.
No. Hey, come hit us up over on Tails. We got bets.
You want blind hatred. The Cardinals.
We got our touchdown collab. Maybe we'll hit that. Old 21-1. Is that what it was?
If we hit that,
we're in
what
business.
a way to close that. That'll be I love that bet. For that price, I think both those guys have a real chance to score. And I will definitely have some thoughts. Again, we've got a discussion thread posted on Tails. We've got a ton of collabs. I did one with Eric Lindquist himself, who's coming up momentarily earlier in the week with Mike Thurst. There's so many good bets posted on Tails right now. I'm going to be tailing a bunch after the show because I have like 10 boosts that are expiring before kickoff that I need to get to. So what's the bet? We just dropped it. We dropped it on Tails. The link is there. Go and check it out. And you can tail it in one click. It is that easy. So
already got 100+ people that tailed that one, baby.
Oh,
Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. Appreciate you guys. Love you all. Have a great rest of the day. I'm going to go break out the snowblower. This is going to suck, dude. And then we're getting a bunch of ice.
It's starting to come down here. Now it's getting a little serious.
Yeah, I know Spags is dealing with this as well. So,
and then Eric's just chilling in the 70-degree weather, relaxing.
Maybe some good wins will make it all better. Have a great rest of the weekend. We'll see you back here for the Super Bowl. Bye-bye. I should have had that lined up. Ready? We'll see you back here for the Super Bowl. Bye-bye.
Better.
damn it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the NFL Live Before Lock show here at Stokastic. I'm Eric Lindquist. It's championship weekend, which means I'm joined by the champion himself, Chris Spags. Go follow him at Chris Spags, the director of all things Splash Play over on the YouTubes. Go give him a follow there. You can follow all of his content, including a video breaking down a lot of what we're going to be talking about today, which I caught 10 minutes of, and then I'm like, why am I doing this now? I'm going to do this tomorrow. I don't want to waste any time there, but I did give him the like button. I did have the subscribe there. Those are the things that matter, right? Anyway, how you doing, my dude?
I'm glad to be here. I was really curious to see how long it's going to take you to catch that you were muted before the show starts. That was the game I had within the game as we were starting, but you got it too fast. I was hoping you'd do the whole intro and you'd be muted. I go, you're muted. We're going to have fun. But no, glad to have you here. I mean, it's last week, Eric was so elusive. He's on the road. He's traveling. I had to have EMAC filling in. So if nothing else, my world is brighter having you in it this fine Sunday here.
Oh, yeah, no, just last second, back and forth Arizona. That's been my Friday, Saturdays. Shout out Bill and Lorraine Lindquist, living their lives because they got to know out there in the great place that is Scottsdale, Arizona. Good times. Got to hit up the DraftKings Sportsbook with them, which is always an enjoyable experience. And going to probably run that back in some capacity next weekend. This weekend, though, I'm in the home hub, and normally Sundays I'm already back here because it's like a 36-hour back and forth for me. But nobody cares about that shit. They care about the fact that I'm actually on the show today. Thank you to EMAC, obviously, for filling in that last-second capacity on Saturday. But I'm excited for this too, gamer. Obviously, I'm excited because it's championship weekend, one of the best weekends of the entire year, year in, year out. I'm excited for the football. I'm going to ask you this before we dive in because we're going to have forever to break down this. We've already had Lofty and Ben break everything down in a great capacity. Greg, he did an okay job too. I don't want to give him too much credit, but who wins today? Chris Spags?
Or who am I hoping for, or who's my brain going to actually pick?
What's the brain? I'm hoping I win DFS tournaments too, but I have to actually play the things that I believe in. So I want you to put, you don't have to bet it, but I would like to know who you think plays in the Super Bowl in 2 weeks.
I will go with the Denver Broncos win today. That is where my money is aligned as well. Not so much in money line betting, but as in I am putting my money where my mouth is. I am fading the hell out of Drake May today because I'm waiting for the bottom to be found in these last 2 shots to get hopefully the Drake May falling apart game correct after he's been fumbling his way through the first 2 rounds of the playoffs and getting covered at every round by his great defense last week. Also, the Texans just having no Nico, having Schultz injured early in that game, I think wasn't the best situation for the Texans. But for this week here, I think the Broncos win. And then Rams, Seattle. I am also going with the dog. I'm going Rams in that one.
Oh, man. I would love to see both dogs, but I'm going to go Patriots and I'm going to go Rams as well. I'm going to jump on the Rams thing as well. Seattle has ran really, really good. We'll see. Kenneth Walker. This is going to be a fascinating one. He's infinity % owned today. That's going to be really fun to break down the ins and outs of and potentially ways. Well, I'm not going to be getting away from Kenneth Walker. That's not the point, but getting away from builds that are going to be extremely, extremely chalky that serve up. Well, everything's chalky with Kenneth Walker today. That's not the point. What is the point is you guys are going to hit that like button for us. You're also going to check out Tails because Tails is where you can find a ton of great bets for today, including pick'em cards, including all of the great single game parlays that I know you're looking for here heading into this AFC Championship game starting up in 52 minutes. If you simply download the Tails app, you're going to have all of that at your fingertips. You have the app to be able to follow experts such as myself, such as Dave Lochran there, Lofty on the previous program, Ben Raza, Jazz Raz, DFS, Jazz Raz in general, over there, 1Z at the very end of that there, over on the Tails app. It is good times to be hanging out there on this lovely Sunday. And without further ado, we also have some great DFS content over there that is posted just like we have on this show. I'm currently sharing the Sims tool. We'll jump into the single lineup sim here in a little bit, but anything you want to bring up from a player by player perspective before we dive on in?
No, I mean, obviously it's going to be a Kenneth Walker slate with the field being there so heavy. The Sims also thinking that even with him being projected for about 91.5% ownership, that you should get about 96% in the most recent Sim that I just ran here, though. Looks like projections got another update, so we'll see if we need to rerun one more time here. But I think it makes it interesting for sure with Walker being owned that much, just the game theory of it. For me, and we could talk more at great length about Kenneth Walker, I'm sure, but I just chopped my ownership down to 75%. I think the field will come in a little bit lower than the 90. I trust the sim, obviously, but I think it's worth getting a look in some portion of lineups. Initially, I was going to go 50-50. And I'm like, well, that's too low if the sim is saying get 95. Then I was like, I'll go 66% Walker. I was like, it seems a little bit too low too. 75 felt about right for me when just kind of going through the lineups and what I get for it. But really, Kenneth Walker, a guy that we've had so many question marks about his mega chalk all year. Now I feel like it's a slate where you have the least amount of questions ever, and I'm trying to talk myself into ways to fade him.
Well, let's talk about fading Drake May, which is not exactly what I'm doing, but being below the field in 150, I think is something that pretty naturally is going to happen for me. Let's start the conversation here. Amongst the popular quarterbacks here, because we've got two that are, I would say, are on the outside looking in here. Well, three, I guess. Let's just go to Drake May and have this discussion piece. I have 30.7% of him. Again, I ran the Sims unencumbered here right before this show started. We got another update as well. Make sure that you don't have any Troy Franklin or anything in your lives. Mac Hollins is active as well for New England. So there are some changes that have happened at the wide receiver position. We got news also tight end. Elijah Arroyo going to be in for Seattle. So if you were looking for actives and actives, we're not going to get him for that Seattle Rams game yet, but we got everything in for the first one, updated it, and I'm sure we're going to update when those 90-minute before inactives come out for the next game. But Drake May, man, he is very popular. He is very easy to get to, and yet 41.7% ownership is a lot when you have Stafford, Darnold, and then a guy at 4,500 making his fifth career NFL start. Spags, what's your game plan with Drake May? Because as you said before the show, you're fading the hell out of him.
Yeah, I mean, in my lineups that I submitted before the show, and I'll give you guys an exact number across. I think I have 177 lineups in today. I've got him in 3% of them. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I mean, frankly, if you watched Greg's show, and I know Lafayette and Ben just made a lot of jokes about its never-ending length as he tried to find a good lineup, and they kept getting Drake May lineups with negative ROIs over and over again. But it was, I think, a useful 45 minutes of Sisyphus pushing the boulder uphill of really it's hard to find positive ROI Drake May lineups you feel good about. And then if you go across the industry projections, like Drake May is your cash game QB for the week. It's also Drake May and Broncos D being played together if you use projections across the industry as well. So you're getting a lot of just negative things, I think, combined with how people are going to get fed, Drake May and Broncos D as projection plays. And obviously, Stokastic data, I think, accounts for that more in the Sims. You're not getting that quite as much, but I think it's easy to move away from Drake May and just roll the dice with the other three QBs. For me, that meant really boosting Matthew Stafford. Stokastic Sims hate Stafford today. I don't know what he did to the Stokastic team behind the scenes, but like 19% ownership for the field for Stafford, 4.7% coming up for me. I just kind of boosted Stafford to get to where Darnold's ownership is for me. So that's high 30s for both. Stidham, I got, I think, around 20. I got a 23%. And then May, I'm taking a 3. So it's definitely, I would say, a bold take on the slate to fade the guy that, 43% of the field's going to play. But a QB, I think you can waive that more than any other position. Like, I'm not trying to fade Kenneth Walker and flip that for somebody else. Like, QB is always one of the spots I think people get too comfortable with the chalk QB, and that's Drake May. And Drake May versus the Broncos is not a good spot.
Also, there's a world where if they are up early in this and Jared Stidham is bad, I'd just rather have the quarterbacks in the next game, which is kind of my other thinking point on the Drake May thing. Don't they just run the ball into oblivion, kill the clock, realize that Jared Stidham isn't getting anything done, and they can win a 13-3 football game? Like, there's a lot of runouts where Drake May, you don't want to put him in harm's way. You don't want to make him, he's been the most accurate passer in football this season. He's also had the longest yards per attempt in football this season. That is an insane combination. And yet the Broncos defense at home, really interesting spot to potentially be under the field on Drake May, despite all of the good things that we can say about him. And no real rushing equity from the other three quarterbacks, which I think is probably the other thing in Drake May's corner. In cash, you're playing Drake May, Chris Spags, but in tournaments, I'm with you. There's too many things that can happen, too many game scripts where New England just finds ways to be effective enough and doesn't have to do a whole hell of a lot. We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and really it stands out too that, what Drake May has been struggling with, I think, the most. And look, I fully acknowledge, like Eric mentioned, like he has been really the most accurate QB in football, even stats that I swear by, like EPA metrics. You guys know I live and die by the stuff that Sports Info Solutions does there. But like he's had on the year a 0.27 EPA per dropback, 0.28 EPA per pass. Like he's been really good. It's just he's not played legitimate competition more than once this year, twice this year. Like it's been a crazy run out. It's been a really favorable run out. But part of what I believe when you have data like this, where you're facing a Broncos team that on the year has been one of the best, giving up a negative 0.12 EPA per dropback, negative 0.14 EPA per pass. They're creating pressure on 31% of dropbacks. It's the most of this final four teams. And they're only blitzing, 28% of the time to get that 31% pressure. So they're creating front four pressure. What has Drake May struggled with so far these first two rounds? When the pressure of the pocket kind of collapses around him and he's fumbling left and right, he's lucky to recover a couple of those where his teammates have, but like it's been sloppy there. And I think people are just still like, it's inevitable here. Oh, the backup on the other side. Even the chat was doing a little bit, or at least a few guys in the chat were. And it's like, I just think there's this assumption Drake May is going to get crowned. And it's like, this is the toughest defense he's faced. At Houston was tough last week. I would say it's probably the second toughest he's faced all year. If he gets Seattle in the final, in the final round of the Super Bowl, that'll be the toughest he's faced. But like right now, the Broncos are the toughest he's faced. And I think it's going to be harder on him than people realize. And if he's going to be mega chalk, like, I'm sticking to my guns with just, I think that you're due for the run bad because he's run so hot in the softest possible matchups all year.
Totally agree. Again, it's been the easiest schedule in football. There's so many things that are going for and against. I think it's going to play closer to the spread. I think that's kind of been also Ben Roz's kind of feel on this. You threw that out there as well here. Very curious to see how Drake May play. Still just a second-year quarterback. He's been incredible at 23 years old. I think all of us, especially Vikings fans, would be just fine with Drake May in purple and gold or, whatever your team is. And yet we're playing DFS. We're trying to find ourselves some advantages. And I mean, the one thing I will say too, QB +3, really not the build this week. We are looking more towards these two builds, and a lot of that has to do with what exists with Kenneth Walker and the two wide receivers and JSN and Puka Nacua, where it is so hard to get away from them specifically. And that's where we kind of get into this next batch. Let's go to the NFC Championship game before we finish out with Stidham. How are you planning to utilize Stafford and Darnold in your lineups this week, knowing that we have JSN, we have Puka? A lot of people are going to have both in a bunch of lineups here, but Spags, I do think finding ways to have one of the stack partners there, potentially getting away from, the other wide receiver there, because I'm going to play Kenneth Walker in a majority of those lineups, but I'm much more on the Sam Darnold side this time around. And boy, is it not QB1. I am going and stacking up Sam Darnold in a bunch of crazy 3-4 type wide receiver pass catcher ways.
Yeah, Darnold, the Sims really seem to be gravitating towards. So naturally, he's the one I think coming up the most. Again, I moved my numbers around a lot, but in the Sim where I just didn't touch things, Darnold's coming up at 41%. The field's at around it up 20. So seems like he's the player the Sim is most comfortable with. And obviously, it speaks to the quality of the play. For me, in terms of just how the slate breaks down, like I view Darnold and Stafford as kind of the same play. My higher dollar lineups got more Darnold, but overall I had 38% Darnold, 37% Stafford. So I kind of are seeing them, and the opportunity they both have is pretty similar. Obviously with Darnold coming up more in a Sim, Stafford being full fade in the Sim, I would say that like unequivocally, I think Darnold based on the data and of course, a great Sim product like Stokastics, like he's the better play. But I think in terms of the upside here, Stafford, I think as well, the fact people are afraid of the Seattle defense, even though Stafford's gotten results against them. I want to play into that a little bit more. But, the field is going to be at 20% on both guys. So to me, just getting above the field on both guys, low on Drake May, that's sort of the luxury you get if you are willing to take a stand on the slate and go against, the chalkiest QB. So I prefer Darnold. I think he's a better play based on the data. But, if Stafford ends up being a player that like you're not getting into Sim, and then as a result, the ownership for the field comes down a little bit lower. If you get a 10% on Stafford, like that could be crazy to me, given the fact I think he's the MVP this year.
Yeah, and he's $800 more expensive than Darnold, which isn't all that much on this specific slate. We're going to have a bunch of wide receivers down here in the doldrums that we're going to be able to talk about and kind of save some salary with. And tight end, we don't have a Kittle. We don't have, we would never have like a Raiders or any, a lot of the tight ends, Trey McBride, all those guys have been done since, 1984, it feels like. So we have a ton of cheapies at the tight end position by default. We have lots of cheapies to rotate around here. And I don't really think the mid-range is all that strong at wide receiver here from a salary perspective. And running back, there's no Christian McCaffrey on this slate. There's no, 8K plus guy that we got to go get. Jonathan Taylor's and such that we had during the regular season. It's just one of those slates that plays very straightforward in some ways. And I'm going to get different by doing it a little bit differently with this guy. Jarrett Stidham is my highest owned quarterback this week. Do I have any idea? How this is going to go for me other than poorly? I don't know. But the Sims have 36%. Spags, I have him in 50%. I hard capped him at 50. I like embracing a guy who's $1,000 less than Sam Darnold. That's $1,500 less in that same game environment than Drake May. Plus, this is a guy that obviously Sean Payton went out and drafted Bo Nix. So I'm not saying that Stidham's his guy, but like they kind of prioritized re-signing him multiple times now. Go out and get him, then re-sign him. He's been in-house here for a while. He's basically been put up on ice for however long. I don't think it goes splendidly well, but this gives me so much access to Puka plus JSN plus Devontae Adams lineups. That combination is not as popular as what I was expecting it to be when I ran through the Sims. And Spags, I just think there's a lot of iterations with Jarrett Stidham plus one pass catcher. Jarrett Stidham, whether it's Sutton, Evan Ingram, or you can get really crazy and find ways to leave salary on the table with Stidham and be completely unduped. I love everything about embracing this volatility today. How much are you planning on embracing that volatility today?
Yeah, so I'm getting him in 23% of lineups, which is above the field. I mean, I think the ownership's come up a little bit from Stokastic in this latest run, and I don't want to touch my lineups too much because I think things move around a little too much with the ROI boosts and the max exposure things I had before the show. But I'm cool rolling into the quarter of my lineups to Stidham. I think half your lineups is definitely a bold take, but like if you're not going as heavy on Stafford as I am and you're still fading May, I think that'd be a logical way to do that. Stidham, I'm surprised to see the prop market just double check to make sure this was right. About 208.5 to 10.5, up to 211.5 on the books that rip you off a little bit more. Like pretty big numbers for Stidham today, I think, relative to the expectation. Like in my mind, I think if he gives you 190 and he runs for a touchdown, he's probably close to being able to make a winning lineup at his price tag. But with the betting markets having him at, the median outcome being 210 and change to 11, it's not bad for Stidham. And I agree with you too, that there's a couple things I think about Stidham I feel strongly about. Number one, Sean Payton has not minced words about him at all. He said, I'm worried about other parts of the game, other players. I'm not worried about Stidham. He has had a hard on for Stidham since the moment he brought him on the team. There was a pretty decent chance he started over Bo Nix last year as Nix was coming in as a rookie, but Nix played well enough in camp. I think Stidham also got banged up at one point and sort of Nix just didn't give up the job. But I think they do have a lot of confidence in Stidham. I know the chat in general, the internet loves a good revenge game. This is a revenge game going against New England. And for Stidham too, being well coached, hopefully in this spot, having some rushing upside as well. He is a guy that can run a little bit. I think what you might get from Stidham here is a game that kind of looked like early Bo Nix. People might forget this, but Bo Nix, before he kind of evolved into the QB he was this year, and also the guy he was at the tail end of last year, he was running like a madman. He couldn't get to the ball and open windows, all that stuff. And I think Stidham might be kind of that same situation where he's not as talented as Bo Nix, so he might have to run more out of necessity. This New England defense is one of the worst on this slate. It's only 4 teams, but they and the Rams are definitely a tier below the Seahawks and the Broncos defense on paper and all the metrics I track. And New England's given up the highest catchable ball rate at 81.5%. So, and there's a lot of things you can make a case for Stidham. The one thing you can't make a case for is it's a pretty bad total, under 20 implied points for Denver. But at that price tag, at that ownership, I agree. It's worth getting more. I didn't have as brave a stand as you, put him in half my lineups, but it's a 4-game slate. Just QB is the easiest spot to always roll the dice with and hope you get a unique stack that has paid off.
And that's the other part of it. You're bringing up the unique stack element. That's what I feel the most confident about is I know when I look at these lineups, and these are my top ROI lineups going through the Sims, JSN, Devontae Adams, JSN, Devontae Adams, JSN, a kind of an interesting blend, 3 RB kind of builds. There's so many interesting configurations for Jarrett Stidham that don't really exist the same way for the Darnolds, for the Matt Staffords. I mean, once again, all 3 of those quarterbacks have virtually zero, and I mean zero rushing equity. I guess we don't really know entirely with Stidham. The market's been kind of buoying back and forth around 14.5, 15.5 rushing yards. Never really saw it at any point in his career up to this point. In 4 starts, you're not going to get a huge sample size to delve through that. But I love these unique stacks. I love these ideas where I can get to some of the more expensive players and expensive type builds And I just simply have the quarterback as the deviating piece. And, there's a lot of ways where he can finish third in fantasy points and still end up optimal just purely because he can allow you JSN plus Nakua plus Devontae in some capacity. So that's going to be the way I go about it. Anything else you want to bring up at quarterback?
No, I mean, look, ultimately, the field ownership, if nothing else, seems pretty efficient if you just follow it to the letter of the law and you play, your 40% in May and then 20% of the other guys. But I do think it's the kind of slate where you're, like Eric mentioned, I think you really summed it up well. Like, you're going to end up playing a lot of chalky lineups, a lot of dupey kind of lineups, switching up at QB, and then you have one pass catcher correlated to that QB that might be a little bit different. I think that's a pretty good way to get unique on a slate where it seems pretty likely that some of your chalkiest plays are going to hit, especially based on the sim data.
All right. Two things. We got Sean Preston, $36.53, $5. First donation to get a puppet, a money hat. Please donate to the Puppet Money Hat Fund. I think the people want to see the puppet. We're going to have the puppet out for the Super Bowl. I mean, that would just be wrong. You got to invite him to the party, no doubt about it. But Spags, we got some love already for Puppet Lindquist. We've had love for Puppet Lindquist all year. I don't think a lot of people knew who Puppet Lindquist was. That's something I've learned just simply because we have more people watching the NFL show than anything else. But he needs a money hat, it would appear. You are shortchanging my alter ego.
Well, the thing is, the money hat is a Spags bit, and I'm supposed to be Puppet Eric Lindquist. So I make jokes that are more like, oh, I heard we're going to get 8 inches today. Oh, of snow? Sad face. Those are the kind of jokes that Puppet Lindquist makes. So that's the difference between us. But I appreciate the super chat. It does not come to me, though. I have to, for what it's worth, if you're donating money, there are many places that it could go to Spags. This is not the place that it goes to Spags. There you go. 8 inches, Eric. You got it?
Ugly 8 game. I'm only NBA sub. Any deals for NFL subs? Well, wouldn't you know? We have some NFL goodness. We also have NBA goodness. We also have MMA, PGA, tons of stuff that you can download using our link join offer. We have tons of partners. We got tons of sportsbook partners, tons of pick'em partners. The thing is, if you sign up with any of them, period, anything on the left side or right side of your screen, you're going to get yourself a month of that sport. If you guys want to get NFL for the Super Bowl, awesome. You're ready to rock. If you want to get NBA for the next month, awesome. If you guys want to, my God, Puppet Lindquist, you've got me frazzled. It's all right. DraftKings, Underdog, Onyx Odds, all the things, friends, for the PGA streets. Those are really fun too. Puppet Lindquist is probably a pretty good golfer. I don't know about you, but I just won a golf tournament yesterday. I also won 3 skins. No big deal. Just thought I'd throw it out there. Tons of opportunities for you to sign up. DraftKings, Underdog, Onyx Odds, or Underdog Fantasy. Pick 6. That's something that, again, you could sign up at DraftKings and DraftKings Pick 6. Both are available in a bunch of states. You can take advantage of PGA and MMA for a month each. You could take advantage and stack up NBA for 2 months. Awesome times signing up with any of our partners.
The chat reactions are really funny where it's like 9 out of 10 people be like, ha ha ha, crying, laughing emojis. And one or two people go like, what the fuck is like, which I think is completely fair. I do the bit out of moral obligation, but I've learned from the money hat itself, because there was a period where I was doing the money hat on stream every day. I stopped wearing it, and then I had to bring it back because people like the bits. Puppet Lindquist will always be here, guys, even if he exhausts us both.
Yeah, well,
he also won 3 skins yesterday too, but different kind.
That wasn't like an Inglourious Bastards thing. It wasn't just
3 or 4 skins.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Wow. Oh, Puppet Lindquist, you dirty, rotten whore. Let's get ourselves to the running back position. Kenneth Walker. I want to have some kind of a strategy conversation about this, but I think this is probably the thing I can emphasize home enough. There are a ton of ways where Kenneth Walker doesn't end up optimal. There are also a ton of ways where Kenneth Walker, you'd still have to get everything else in the lineup right. So if I got Trevion Henderson for 20 and Kenneth Walker for 18, guess what? I'm probably going to play both in that scenario, but I'm probably running into a lot of situations where I have to get everything else right in those Trevion Henderson lineups as well. So for me, I don't find any reason not to jam Kenneth Walker today. He's 6,200. George Holani, 26-year-old George Holani. He's a Kiwi. He's lovely, out of Boise State. Did a lot of cool things. I watched him run a lot on the YouTubes this week. Guess what? I don't give a shit. It's George Holani who's had 22 carries this season. we're just jamming Kenneth Walker and embracing any kind of injury risk, anything else that could potentially exist there, because I don't believe the field is sharp enough to still get to this 91.3% projected ownership number. We see this routinely in NBA Spags. They don't end up that popular. Now, I expect them to be 80+%. I don't think that's enough. Give me all the Kenneth Walker this week.
Yeah, and I agree. Like, I think that's ultimately the logic that kept me at 75% for him. Like, he was coming up a lot more. I just felt like I could take a few different looks across, playing enough lineups today. Like, I felt like I could just do a few without Walker. And, for me, the logic was just like, am I going to lose 25% of my money on an NFL slate? Oh, no, I'm so unaccustomed to that. So that was sort of my thought process for how it felt about Kenneth Walker on this particular situation. Like, yeah, if he's the perfect play and the field's totally right and they play him 100% of the time, which they won't, then you know what? Like, I think you're willing to lose a little bit and play 25% different looks on that. But, the big thing for Kenneth Walker is that his main obstacle this entire year has been Charbonnet. I talked about it on stream. Like, for Kenneth Walker, for him to hit in a game as he was mega chalk, like I talked about fading him because I'm like, the way that it works for him is not great because he has to break touchdowns from between 20s because they're not giving him red zone work. You're now taking away Charbonnet, who not only takes away those goal line opportunities, but also takes away a lot of high value opportunities across the board, like short down and distance kind of situations, even some, occasional target. But Walker is a guy too, where I think, my concern about fading Walker, even in 25% of lineups, is like, let's say, how does Walker not get there? It's probably the Rams just like put a beat down on him. Seattle can't move the ball at all. Sam Darnold sees ghosts and like totally regresses and all that. But even those situations, Walker's probably going to get targeted a good amount, given the fact he's getting targeted, 22% of the time he's running a route, which is higher than everybody on the team besides, JSN. So I think for Walker, he does have a couple different outs here. I think the deeper dive guys made a great point as well about just the raw points of it on, a 2-game slate. You might just need him scoring 13. And if the field has him for the most part, they might not have, like, even if Jaleel McLaughlin outscores them, they might not have that lineup together where he does, beat out a Kenneth Walker. So for Walker, I think you don't want to be under on the field by a lot. But to me, like playing him in half your lineup is probably too little. Playing him in 90, I think, is a little bit rich, even if that's what the sim gives you. I think you're better off just taking a few different looks, but there's no blockers for him here besides the Seattle not showing up today.
Yep. Completely agree with everything that you said there. His backups are going to be George Alani, Cam Akers. Like Cam Akers, they activated and elevated as well. Again, we'll get the actives and actives having a perfect idea there. Cam Akers, does he have revenge in his heart? Even though it's like, cool, a team took a chance on you and drafted you and you made it some money there for a quick second, even though it ended very unceremoniously before he gets shipped off to, Minnesota to Houston to Minnesota is kind of the way that it worked out. And now he's somehow with Seattle. So we'll see how it all comes together there in the backup situation. But I don't think either of them are viable. Even when it comes to showdown for tonight, I don't know if that's something that I probably want to be embracing, either one of them. So give me all the Kenneth Walker and all the land. And then we get to, I think, maybe the crux of the entire slate, like wide receiver. I'm going to take a lot of random shots. We'll get into all the ins and outs of the guys that I'm taking shots on at wide receiver. But at running back, we really, really need to have a conversation about RJ Harvey versus Ramondre Stevenson. Right now, the Sims are basically hand-holding each spot here. We're seeing Stevenson play 60, 65% of snaps to 35, 40% of snaps basically there for Travion Henderson. Pretty decent uptick, but it could have been even wider if he doesn't get eye poked last week. And I was freaking out at halftime because, I played all the Stevenson yet again this week after 2 months basically of jamming this dude after their week 14 bye. And yeah, I think you got a little bit more Henderson that worked in as a result. But RJ Harvey, this is so interesting to me because I think he's the better play of the two this week. And I feel like I'm taking crazy pills, but like, without J.K. Dobbins activated, he's not playing today, for those who don't know, RJ Harvey is pretty much your dude. And Jaleel McLaughlin, I get it, 4,400 maybe gives you a different build, got mixed in a little bit earlier last week, but they've routinely given RJ Harvey more of the work. He's the better pass catcher, has really kind of blossomed in that role this season in a way that wasn't really expected, at least by me. But RJ Harvey, I have a lot more of. I'm currently right around 70% Harvey, 40% Stevenson. So not crazy far off these numbers that you're seeing on your screen, but Spags, I am firmly in the RJ Harvey side of things here today. Talk me off of it or tell me to just keep it the way that it is.
No, I mean, sim-wise, right now, even in the rerun of the sim I got here, I ended up at the same 60% with Harvey that I got before the show. And I think people are missing, like, there's one guy in the chat that can't seem to grasp that the Patriots actually, like, statistically have a decent chance to lose the game. Like, it's not 50-50, but it's still a 33% chance, according to the money line, for the Broncos to win. If RJ Harvey is in that kind of game script, he's going to pay off most likely, though, frankly, really was disappointed with Harvey last week against the Bills because I thought he would get something going on the ground. He ended up doing a lot more in the pass game, but you look at the work he had last week, 18 intended touches, 17 actual touches because he didn't catch one of his targets. That's a really good workload. The deeper dive guys mentioned as well before the show that McLaughlin getting touches before Harvey, not a thing you want to see, but it still ended up being the volume so much more in favor of Harvey that I don't think I'd be worried about it on paper. And frankly, he was just so bad last week. Like, it's not, I think as soft of a matchup, that Bills defense, one of the, easiest run defense to generally get results on this year. But it's still a spot where, like, New England's defense, not particularly great in the run game either. They're giving up overall a negative 0.01 EPA per rush, which is actually fairly soft. Not the softest amongst the four teams, but pretty much in that same range. They do miss tackles at a decent clip as well, 16% rate there. They don't stuff the run terribly much. New England side. So for RJ Harvey, your hope would be that he can get something going here. But the big thing is just, like, if he's going to get 15 plus touches on this slate, it's enough at RB to pay off, especially at a $5,900 salary. That's cheaper than pretty much all the guys who are actual starting running backs on the slate. So yeah, I can't talk you off, Harvey. I'm right there. I just wish you were better last week. Like, that was kind of, to me, like, you beat up on, crappy teams, one of the litmus tests, like a guy like Drake May has passed year. Harvey did not beat up on a Buffalo defense that, like, a lot of guys have run on this year. Gives me a little bit of pause, but he could be better this week, I think, if he just plays a little bit better, I hope.
Yeah, also, it was a different game plan to some extent. I mean, Bo Nix, they came out, they were throwing it all over the lot. And, for a team that's been a run funnel, the Buffalo Bills, they really kind of flipped what they were going for with Bo Nix. Sean Payton just kind of gave the ball to him to go out and win. And he sure enough did. He played fantastic. Without him this week, I think they're kind of forced into some more Harvey, whether it's going very well or not early. And, the best friend of any quarterback is a semblance of a running game, if not a great running game. They don't have a great running game. That's not really going to be an option. But at 5,900 for him, I do like the workload we're getting. I think there's going to be enough pass catching involvement there for some of these short to intermediate routes to try to get a little bit going here for Stidham early. And that's where Stevenson, he's really good. But if we get comparable ownership between the two of them here, Harvey still has no true equal there in McLaughlin that's going to be pushing him for, a majority of those snaps. Whereas, you can definitely see that spring out for Henderson. I guess the one guy that's kind of left by his lonesome, Kyren Williams. And this is kind of where the Sims are just kind of elevating all of these guys. Like, these three running backs, in addition to Walker, are just getting rotated around in a bunch of lineups. I brought it up before. Wide receiver in the mid-range, not very strong. There aren't even that many options at the mid-range of wide receiver. And because we have so many cheap tight ends, well, we've seen running back routinely be a 3 RB type league in years past here. We don't need the savings for a double tight end kind of week. There's no question that I'm going to be having 3 RB builds all over the place in 20 max, all over the place in 150 max. But is Kyren Williams going to be in 35, 40% of your lineups? Currently in 47% of the Sims. I've got 38%. I think I'm just fine with that.
Yeah, I've got him just shy of 50. I mean, because I did take less Walker. So I got 76% Walker, 59 of Harvey, and then 47 of Kyren, 45 of Ramondre. So, like, that's my big four. Obviously, that's the four you expect to be there. I didn't try to get too cute there. And I got a little bit of Henderson, a little bit of McLaughlin, a little bit of Corum. But, like, I think Kyren is the one that I really did want to boost up the most. I think the situation for him is really that he's facing a Seattle defense that does funnel targets to some extent to running backs. It's been the thing that I think actually Laffy and I did a showdown show when it was the Rams-Seattle game. Might be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure it's correct. And with something that we talked about, like, it's a matchup where it feels like Kyren can get more work in the pass game. In the playoffs, we've seen that pop up a little bit more. And he's still a guy I think they're trusting on the field in these situations more than Corum in general throughout the season and throughout the playoffs. So I think for Kyren being out there a little bit more, having a shot that they shut down some of your primary pass options a little bit better than other situations, getting more targets fed Kyren's way, as they have sometimes. They've been in these kind of do or die, we have to move the ball kind of game scripts. I think it's a good spot for him. And he is still a guy too, where if you get that inverse game situation where the Rams dominate or, like Walker doesn't get there, the odds of Kyren getting there are higher. So having half my lineups, the field's going to be at 33, I think was sort of a natural move for me, but not a big stand on him relative to Ramondre. Like, I think those two guys to me, both comparably decent enough plays.
Yeah, all my top sim ROI lineups, Kyron. I mean, it's just a lot of Kyron for me here. And there are quite a few Harvey plus Stevenson. So not to go completely crazy and poo-poo the idea of playing them together or, having a lot of those three of the top four guys in a bunch of your lineups. For me, that's the way that I'm going to be rolling it out. Kenneth Walker kind of pre-built into everything that I'm doing. So I'm north of that 90% number, right in that like 95% range like you saw on your screen earlier. But I really like the idea of just getting to a little bit more Kyron. Are you taking any shots on these lower owned guys? Because I did hear a little bit from Lofty and Ben that they were looking at Travion Henderson. I think that logic definitely makes sense. He's had big playability over the course of this season. I did take his under 44.5 rushing plus receiving yards on a couple of pick'em cards. I think it's a pretty decent spot to fade Travion Henderson, but if the field's going to be at 5% in DFS, I recognize that he can get on the field, bust a big play. I just look at the last 5 weeks, man, and that passing game involvement has been way down and all going towards Stevenson. In fact, he's had one catch or fewer in all 5 of those games, and not a single one of those catches has reached double-digit yard Spags. It feels like you need Travion Henderson to just rock a big play, and if that's what I'm looking at, maybe I should be adding a little bit more McLaughlin, because I think you could say the exact same thing about him at a cheaper tag.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not crazy about Travion either. I mean, sim-wise, I didn't get him at all in this most recent run. I did get him in 3% in my final lineups, which is not a stand of any note, but I got him at least a little bit. But I think for him, what stands out to me is that this Denver matchup, like I would say an aberration in their data is that they stuffed the run at a really good clip, 20% stuffed run rate, but overall they give up a flat 0 EPA per run, which is a little bit towards the softer side of the league. So what I read into that is that like they're either getting you in the backfield or you're breaking a play that then sort of earns EPA back. That's the way expected points added works. Is basically like if you're in one situation where normally teams get 5 yards and you get 10, then you're getting plus EPA. If you're in a situation where like you're tackling the backfield, but normally running backs get 3 yards, then you're getting minus EPA. So I think that trade-off benefits a guy like Travion a little bit more, because if he does hit on that big play, the 50-yard kind of runs that he can break out of nowhere, that could pay off his day and also sort of fit what I think I'm seeing data-wise. But I don't think he's like a play I want to go to my way for. I'm with you that Ramondre, the workload seems to be consolidated for him. And, he's another guy where all year in the high leverage spots, they've trusted him a lot, kind of like Charbonnet. And, you're not taking him off the field like you are Charbonnet. He's going to be fully there, getting more work than he probably has all year. So it is sort of a limited outcome for Travion, but if he breaks those big plays, they'll put him out there more. They just still trust him in pass pro. So like, it's hard to have him out there for these kind of situations when you're in competitive games.
All right, we got a couple of super chats here as well as we go over to the wide receiver position. Ryan 002, $1.99. Thank you so much. Which tight end for one FanDuel GPP lineup, Hunter or Parkinson? I guess we could probably just talk about the Rams tight ends in general and the uncomfortable feeling that I have about the fact that Fergie Ferg, let me love you long time, comes off of the hamstring injury, and all of a sudden he's playing over Higbee, and yet we still have Davis Allen getting mixed in. There are 4 of these guys that are going to be active unless something changes with those active inactives. And it is very firmly going to be on the Parkinson side of things. I just don't see them playing a lot of 12 against Seattle yet again. It just feels like they're going more towards 11, 13 personnel. We're seeing quite a bit against the Bears. Something's weird with this tight end situation, because I liked Higbee last week. All of a sudden, he played 10% of snaps. It was insane to watch, Spags. How do you feel about Parkinson in general? Because I think Hunter is the chalk, but I'm having a really tough time in tournaments figuring out what I want to do with any of these Rams tight ends.
I mean, I think for that guy asking about, Hunter versus Parkinson, I feel like if your lineup's really chalky, I would just take the ownership savings on Parkinson and go that way. Even though, again, you are, like Eric mentioned, you're competing against legitimately 3 other guys that are playing some amount of tight end work that can vary game to game. But Parkinson's seemingly been involved enough. He does have the best projection at a 7.1 projection out of that group of Rams. So I'm okay. Again, if it's a chalky lineup, I would probably go Parkinson. If not, I think Henry's the better play. Fairly unequivocally, like he's got about 3.4 fantasy points higher in projection. Like that's a pretty big gap. Even though I'm not a Drake May believer, I think Henry's going to be a guy that pops up a lot because he projects well, and the price tag's probably a little bit low for it. But yeah, I think the Rams situation overall, I don't trust a lot there. For tight end, actually, I got the most AJ Barner this week, which is not super exciting, but got a lot of Darnold, so I kind of get why. I got him at 40%, got Henry at 33, and Parkinson at 30. So for me, I have a slight lean towards Henry, but those guys kind of the same play. But yeah, I really tight end. It's kind of a dog shit tight end slate. You could tell me any of them hit and it wouldn't be crazy. Frankly, it's one of those slates as well, where if you told me somebody at 2,500 caught one touchdown and that was enough for them to make a winning lineup over a guy that scored 8 or 9 or something, or maybe 10 even, I think that's a possibility too, like an Austin Hooper type who came up a little bit for me. But yeah, like tight end, I have a feel and, sort of a lean for most stuff on a slate. I feel like this is one of the like least feely kind of positions I've had in any slate this year. Like tight end just feels like nothing.
Yep, and that's why I'm taking shots on Evan Ingram. Option number 3 would be my click. It's going to be disturbing. I think there's a chance they need him out there a little bit more today. We'll see kind of the way that the game script plays out. That can also end very poorly. We've seen that. Eric, I need $1 million from Justin Sports 3032. Why don't you sell your body to the night a couple thousand times? You'll get there. You can do it. You can do it. And Sean Preston, again, $2 super chat. Who is going to be the Seattle offensive tackle? I don't quite understand the question. I didn't see any injuries unless I'm just crazy. Charles Cross has been the left tackle basically all year. Am I missing something with this? I don't know. There's that Lucas character that's on the right. He's like guard or right tackle. I don't know. I don't know this question, what this is getting at.
Yeah, I pull up the depth chart because like again, this is not something I'm studying super regularly. It doesn't seem like there's any injuries. Like you got backups that are banged up, but Cross and Lucas seem to be correct. You got that right?
Okay. I know. Yeah, I'm not going to even keep going. I know there's a North Dakota State guy on that line somewhere too, because they do the introductions and it's like North Dakota State. And every time I hear North Dakota or South Dakota, I clock somebody and like remember, and I claim them as one of my own, even though North Dakota, that's, where you marry your cousin. South Dakota, we're clean and respectful. You marry your second cousin. It's incredible.
Well, I do know also for Seattle, if we're going to talk offensive line, Gray Zabel told Leonard Williams how to get a sack last week. So that was this thing I saw on social media. So that sums up the Eric and Spags offensive line discussion hour. I know as a group, I feel like it matters a little bit, but like individual players, I can't. I don't think it matters.
Trent Williams is like the one left tackle that I very much clock for Brock Purdy because those splits are real, like very, very real. I think, you having Spags or me break down tackles on this program, not going to go very well. I feel like we're men of many talents, but most of it is puppeteering, or in my case in time, selling my body to the night, as I was talking about earlier. Again, that's how I became a millionaire. Let's talk about wide receiver, shall we? We got Jackson Smith-Njigba. He's quite good at footballs. He hasn't had to be crazy involved in a couple of these spots, and it's definitely hurt, but we're talking inside of 3 points. We're talking divisional rival. Him and Puka Nacua had that legendary week 16. It was really fun back and forth. I'm just fine being below ever so slightly on Puka this week. Again, not quite to the 74-45 type split here, but we do have Devontae Adams. This is kind of the X factor of this entire range, of the entire slate, I would say, as you just kind of group it by salary. There's Diggs, there's Sutton. I think both of those are guys that the Sims also like a decent amount, especially the Sutton side of things, if you're bringing as much Stidham for the ride as I am. But amongst Puka and Jackson Smith-Njigba, I do like getting to the Jackson Smith-Njigba side at 8K, leaving that 1K on the table. But I can't tell you exactly what I'm going to do because it's going to be late swap based on the early games as well. So do you have any kind of like a firm stance for JSN Puka? Because they're both fantastic plays, and I'm not going to try to like go crazy. I mean, there's $1,000 difference. One is playing at home, but like Puka Nacua is Puka Nacua.
Yeah, I'm a little bit under on Puka, but not like deliberately. I got him at 66%. That was as much as I could get with sort of the builds I was putting together. I think for Puka, like the thing that is always there for him is that, he's going to get the PPR scam kind of opportunities no matter what on DraftKings. That matters a lot. Touchdown equity can sort of be flow away from him, could go more Devontae Adams' way. I think being mindful of that, even though we haven't seen the big Adams explosion in the playoffs so far, I think is something with Puka. But I got more of JSN, got 75% of him. In the most recent sim I ran, I got a pretty big fade on Puka in 43% ownership, but I'm playing him at 66. So these two guys, again, I made my stands elsewhere to get unique, where did bump down Drake May, playing more of the Stafford and Stidham. Like, I think I've made my choices, got a little bit less Walker. I've made my choices to be unique. I don't think I have to like try to nickel and dime JSN and Puka when I think, in terms of how I view these games. I think they both make a winning lineup. Like, I don't think that's an unchalky assumption. So that's why I'm certainly willing to consider different lineups that don't have both guys. But they're like the two best receivers in football. They fit every criteria I enjoy. And for JSN too, frankly, losing Charbonnet, even though Walker's been the more reliable pass game back, but losing some of that short down and distance stuff might just open up more red zone work for JSN, might open up more short, kind of high leverage situation, third and kind of short situation stuff for JSN that he wouldn't normally get. So I think there's upside for him really in particular, for Charbonnet being out, but also just for both guys in the situation in a do or die kind of spot. Like, they're the ones you want. But those two and Devontae Adams, my three highest exposed guys, and that's a pretty big fall off. But I have JSN 75, Puka at 66, and Devontae just shy of 50.
Love. That's the way that it should work. I'm pretty confident. And now is where we get into Sutton versus Diggs, because again, there's $2,000 down to Adams. I really like the Adams side for tournaments today. And Diggs is the guy who falls off a little bit for me. Cortland Sutton, I'm not going to be at 52% of him. It definitely comes down in an earlier round where we're going to go down swinging with a little bit of Pat Bryant. And if the field wants to jam Marvin Mims again, I guess not again, just if they want to play Marvin Mims coming off of the evisceration last week, sweet, sounds great. But different quarterback, different situation. I'm going to embrace a lot of volatility there with maybe a little Jordan Humphrey in your life as well, but we'll get into that. How are you feeling about Diggs versus Sutton?
I prefer I'm getting less of Drake May, so that's naturally going to make Diggs come down a little bit, but I've got Sutton at 29%, Diggs at 23. And the sim, it seems like it's a lot closer, or actually the ownership rather, 30% for the field, 32% for Sutton right now. But the exposure in the sim also seems to be going a little more Sutton than Diggs. So I don't feel like I'm off the beaten path here. I think the big thing is, like, if you're playing Drake May a lot, you should have more Diggs. If you're playing Drake May less, I just think naturally getting more less Diggs would be the way to go. Diggs should be the most matchup proof of the receivers because they're going to move him around. There won't be any one guy who's going to shadow him. Like, they're going to try to get him the most advantageous spots, the amount of routes they have him out there for. But I think for Sutton, I just expect, Stidham to probably lock onto him a little bit more, given the fact he's your best receiver. And he's a guy that, has the ability to actually get open in the red zone, has gotten good red zone work all year. Sutton, Pat Bryant, two guys I am getting, 25% or more of. So I like the Broncos just like you, but I don't know if you might have crazy amounts of these guys, it sounds like.
Yep, I might have crazy amounts. 34% Pat Bryant, 26% of Marvin Mims, which again, I'm kind of making fun of the Marvin Mims thing at the same time that I know I'm double the field on him at the moment. There's just so much Denver. Like, it's just so easy for me to rotate like these cheapies in. Sutton is still going to have to compete just for the lineup spot of some of these top tier guys. And so while I do have Sutton, while I'm definitely going to be over the field on him as well, I'm finding ways to get away from just primary singles, Stidham to Sutton type lineups. And I do like rotating in a little Jordan Humphrey, Evan Ingram here as well. We'll get to a tight end, but I guess there's not tons to talk about from the Denver side of things because we don't know. Like, we honestly don't know. Troy Franklin, his hamstring, he's out. So we know that. We also know that Marvin Mims completely eviscerated the slate last week, but you had Pat Bryant get dinged up, concussed, and now he's fine. I mean, this is just such a weird run out with Denver. I'm embracing the volatility overall. So let's get into some things like more concrete, like, I don't know, Mac Hollins returning off of IR out of the middle of nowhere and how he could affect things. He's somebody that everybody loves from a pass blocking perspective, which doesn't help us from a fantasy perspective. What are you doing with New England that isn't named Stephon Diggs? Because Big Booty Judy, Mac Hollins, Demario Douglas, I have virtually none of these guys today. Best of luck to me.
Yeah, I got 5% Butte, 5% Hollins. I didn't take any of the other Kyle Williams tier of guys. I just don't think I needed to get there. Pop Douglas, same thing. Because I think getting Hollins back in, I mean, maybe he'll be somewhat limited, but I think they want him out there a lot because he's really their best run blocking receiver. And, he still can catch a pass occasionally. Like, they were really happy to play him, 50 snaps a game for like a month straight at one point this year before he got hurt. So I think he should come back in as a guy that they want to be able to use, especially if Denver doesn't show up offensively with Stidham. I think you're gonna get Hollins out there a lot just to keep the run blocking as pure as they can. But yeah, these guys, not super exciting plays. Butte, I think, does have that big equity. I think, like, every catch he's had in the playoffs so far. I saw on social media, so like, forgive me if it's not an exact stat, but it was like every catch he's had is either a first down or a touchdown so far in the playoffs. That's kind of been the guy he's been all year for this team. Does feel like when Diggs fails, Butte is part of the reason why for having an outlier day. But having Hollins back in does not help him out either, because it sort of decreases the route ceiling that he can have. So I think these guys aren't priority plays. I didn't get any of the little Jordan Humphrey tier, but you'd get these two guys. Everybody else I'm playing, I guess, unless we're going to count Rashid Shaheed, who I got like way too much of. But like all the other guys I got in receiver are like legit players. The two New England flotsam guys, Butte and Matt Collins, are the only ones I got that I would say are like, I don't feel great about, but they came in.
How much Cooper Kupp?
28%. I got 24%
Yeah.
Shaheed, 28% Kupp, but
Yep.
I think it's the same thing. Like if you're playing a lot of Stidham, you get more of Mims, you get more of Pat Bryant. If you're playing a lot of Darnold, you're going to get Kupp and Shaheed coming up more, I think.
Absolutely agree, which is why we're not going to waste any more time with it. Let's get defense out of the way before we go to tight end to finish this all out. Any defensive stance? Because for me, Shaheed plus Seahawks makes a little bit of sense. Marvin Mims plus Denver Broncos makes a little bit of sense, but I don't have like any kind of a pronounced take. Those are going to happen a little bit more organically in certain builds, but like I do think the Denver defense is going a little, a little overowned, just slightly. They shouldn't be 2,500, no doubt about it, but like I expected this ownership to be a little bit lower. As a result, give me the Seahawks right now at 15% ownership. I'm just playing a little bit of the ownership game more than anything else. Stafford's going to go out there and air it out a ton on the road. He's been accurate, but it only takes one tip ball to really swing a slate this way or that way. At 3,300, I do prefer Seahawks over the Patriots. What say you?
Team Broncos here. I got 60% Broncos D, because if you're going to make the
Oh my God.
well, you know what? You're playing Stidham in half your lineups. I'm allowed to play Broncos D in 2/3
Sure
of
are.
mine. Look, if you're going to fade Drake May, I think the logic would be then you should play the defense that's going to be, theoretically benefiting from the player hitting their floor. But I think for the Broncos, they still are going to come up a good amount. Again, they're your cash game defense right now across industry projections. And sim-wise for Stokastic, still coming up 35%, which is a little bit less on the Seahawks, but still your number 2 defense. So I think there's still a team you want to get a good amount of exposure to. For me, though, if you're going to make the play, make the play. We're making the play.
Why did you just ask this? Okay, Eric, how many fumbles did May have last game? I think it was 4. I think he lost 2 of them.
Yeah, 3 in
why,
round 1.
Why is that a question, though? Why do I have to do that off the top of my head?
He's been a little Thumbelina back there, so I would love the Broncos to get a few of those.
Sorry. Anyway, tight end, Hunter Henry. He's definitely your chalk. He's definitely the highest projected. He's definitely the best play. But the best play and the play, we also play an ownership game, and that is where you said AJ Barner, your highest owned tight end. You're a saucy little meat pie, Chris Baggs. Saucy little meat pie you are.
I don't want to be a meat pie.
You are.
I don't know. Barner, the tush push equity for AJ Barner, I think, is not a bad thing. His target earning, technically number 2 on the team out of all the pass catchers. He's behind Walker, but 20.1%, just a little bit ahead of Rashid Shaheed, which includes his New Orleans stats too. So it might be lower. Seattle only. So Barner's been your number 2 receiver, getting the tush push too. Also a positive. The fact you're losing Charbonnet, frankly, might lead to Barner getting a rushing touchdown. I think the chances of that have to be a little bit higher for having no Charbonnet. And I would say too, really, if you're not playing Walker, Barner's probably a little bit of like a leverage play against it, because if you don't get the short Walker touchdown, you might get a short Barner touchdown. But the big thing is that I think the price tag works when you're playing Darnold to get him out. You're going to get him coming up more as your second pass catcher alongside JSN, or as one of the pass catchers in lieu of JSN. So not a guy I have like great feel for. I think tight end is an awful position today, but Barner's the one that came up the most for me.
Yep. And then if you want to get the leverage, Austin Hooper, catch a touchdown. Hunter Henry doesn't catch 6 balls. You're really looking good in that capacity. I don't hate the Austin Hooper play. Sims absolutely hate it, but he's 2,500. He's on the field, and that has utility in milli makers in large field contests. So I did embrace a little bit of Austin Hooper. Talked about the Rams stuff a little bit on that super chat earlier. So hopefully you were there for that discussion. And then Evan Ingram, my second highest owned tight end. So he's my AJ Barner of yours, where Evan Ingram, there's just a spot where they need him on the field a little bit more this week. New quarterback, a little bit of familiarity. And, well, Evan Ingram can actually catch passes, and there's actually a path to that, whereas Adam Troutman makes me sad. And my feelings are always hurt whenever I see Adam Troutman 57% of snaps over Evan Ingram, which has been, for what it's worth, the entire year. So that'll be good stuff. Anything else you want to bring up on this slate? We landed the plane somehow, some way. Anything like large overarching takes, anything about late swap, anything on the door on the way out here, Spags?
No, I mean, I think hopefully the stuff that I've said today is mostly right. I'm certainly, financially really putting myself on the anti-Drake bandwagon because I only get 2 more shots to do this. So if this is going to pay off at some point, we're low on time. But I think it's one of those things too, where people really need to be mindful of the fact that like being contrarian on a 2-game slate important. If you're just playing Seattle wins and New England wins and Jared Stidham sucks, kind of think you're just playing what the field's going to expect. But it's football. We'll see how it goes, guys. We'll find out soon.
So AFC game, I hope it's really, really fun. I think no matter what, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch Rams and Seahawks. It's going to be especially fun to bet on it. So if you guys are planning on that, download the Tails app. You guys can head to the App Store. You can head to Google Play for all you Android people. Yes, you walk amongst us. You guys are sharp. So download the Tails app. Tons of opportunities for you to find some bets for free over at Tails. But that's going to do it for us here at Stokastic. I'm Eric Lindquist. You can follow me at Eric Lindquist. Please go follow at Chris Spags and then hit the like button on the way out. We only have 334 likes, but even more important than that, go click Splash Play. Go click subscribe. Subscribe on the Splash Play podcast. If you enjoy Chris Spags, if you enjoy these wacky bits, you can get hours of content from Chris Spags a week. You get extra content of Chris Spags. That makes me happy. So go do that. Anything else that you want to say on the way out?
No, I appreciate that. I think we're going to do the Super Bowl, right? I think that's what Lafayette.
We are.
We got one more show to close out the year in a couple of weeks, but next week, a lot of NBA coming up. So stay tuned for all that. I'm sure NHL going to have some great streams on here. NFL, even though the season's ending, the gambling doesn't stop. Your shots to make money using Stokastic data. It doesn't stop. So keep showing up here and we'll keep finding some fun things to talk about and gamble on, guys. That's the goal here.
The party don't start till I walk in. Bye.